The Invisible Wife. One night changed everything. She sat behind a marble pillar at her own sister's wedding, eating cold bread while her ex-husband paraded his pregnant girlfriend past her table like a trophy. 300 guests, and not one of them remembered her name. Then a stranger in a black suit sat down across from her, slid a diamond ring across the linen, and said 7 words that would either destroy her life or finally save it. Be my wife, just for tonight. If this story moves you even a little, please hit that like button and drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to see how far Lena's story travels tonight. Stay with me all the way to the end, because what happens in the next 2 hours is going to break your heart before it puts it back together. The wedding hall at the Ashford Grand Hotel in Westfield, Connecticut, smelled like money. Not the everyday kind. The kind that came in crystal bowls of white peonies flown in from somewhere Lena Brooks couldn't pronounce. The kind that hired a 12-piece orchestra just to play during cocktails. The kind that made the chandeliers look less like light fixtures and more like upside-down ball gowns dripping from the ceiling. Lena stood near the coat check, clutching a rectangular gift box wrapped in silver paper, and tried to remember how to breathe. Name? The hostess asked without looking up. Brooks. Lena Brooks. I'm the bride's sister. That got her a glance. A slow one. The hostess's eyes traveled from Lena's borrowed navy dress, 2 seasons old, borrowed from her downstairs neighbor Mrs. Delacroix, down to her plain black flats. The hostess was wearing heels that cost more than Lena's monthly rent. Sister of the bride, the hostess repeated, like she was trying to reconcile the math. She flipped through her seating chart twice. Table 22. 22? Is there a problem, ma'am? Lena swallowed. 22 meant the back. In a room of 24 tables, 22 might as well have been the service exit. No, she said. No problem? She walked in with her chin up because that was the only piece of armor she had left. The ballroom opened up in front of her like a movie set. 30-foot ceilings, a string quartet warming up in the corner, waiters in white jackets gliding between clusters of people who all seemed to know each other. Cologne. Perfume. The sound of champagne flutes clinking somewhere to her right. She spotted her mother first. Diane Brooks stood near the front of the room, one hand resting on the back of a velvet chair, laughing at something Lena's Aunt Marjorie had said. Diane was wearing a champagne-colored gown and the pearl earrings Lena's father had given her before he died. For a second, just a second, Lena almost lifted her hand to wave. Then Diane's eyes slid right over her. Not past. Through. Excuse me, ma'am, can I take your coat? Lena turned. A young waiter was smiling politely at her. I'm a guest. His smile flickered. Just a millisecond. Oh, my apologies, this way. Table 22 was exactly where she thought it would be, tucked behind a white marble pillar, half hidden from the rest of the room. The other guests at the table were already seated, 2 elderly men she didn't recognize, a woman scrolling through her phone, and an empty chair with a place card that still read Brooks +1. The +1 stung. She told her mother 3 weeks ago that she was coming alone. Lena set her gift down on the designated table in the foyer, smoothed her dress with hands that wouldn't stop trembling, and sat. Hi, she said to the woman with the phone. The woman didn't look up. The elderly man closer to her nodded once, politely, the way you nod at a stranger in an elevator, and went back to studying his menu card. Okay, Lena thought. Okay, you can do this. 3 hours. Eat, clap, leave. She checked her phone under the table. Maya, 8 years old. Mommy, are you there yet? Maya. Mrs. D made mac and chessum. Maya. Cheese. Maya. Love. You. Lena's chest tightened. She typed back quickly. At the wedding, sweetie. Be good for Mrs. D. Love you to the moon. And hit send, and for a moment, looking at her daughter's messy little emojis, the ballroom felt 1,000 miles away. Then the orchestra stopped and the room turned, and Catherine Brooks walked in on the arm of their mother's second husband. And Lena forgot how to breathe all over again. Catherine was beautiful. She'd always been beautiful. The kind of beautiful people comment on in hushed voices at gas stations. But tonight, she was something else. Her dress was a cathedral of white silk and hand-stitched lace that must have cost $40,000. Her blonde hair was pulled back into something that looked both effortless and impossible. Diamonds at her throat. Diamonds at her wrists. Diamonds, Lena realized with a dull pang, at her ears. The same ones their father had bought for their mother. Passed down. Lena had always assumed those would come to her, being the older one. She watched her sister float down the aisle, watched her mother dab at her eyes with a linen handkerchief, watched the groom, Brandon something, a surgeon or a banker. Lena could never keep it straight. Take Catherine's hands and smile like a man who just bought the last good thing on earth. The ceremony was short. The vows were the kind Lena had read in magazines when she was 22 and stupid enough to believe in them. She clapped at the right moments. She smiled. When Catherine and Brandon walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, Lena even felt something warm slip through the cracks of her resentment, because Catherine had been her little sister once, the one who used to climb into Lena's bed during thunderstorms, the one who'd cried when Lena got her driver's license because she didn't want Lena to leave the driveway, a long time ago. The cocktail hour was worse. Lena stood near the bar with a flute of champagne she couldn't afford to drink. Her stomach was too empty, and she had to drive home, and watched her family work the room. Her mother introduced Catherine to every guest as my beautiful daughter, the bride. Not one of my daughters. Not my younger daughter. My daughter. Singular. Lena had been standing 3 feet away when she said it the first time. Diane hadn't even noticed. Lena? Lena Brooks? She turned. A woman with a blunt bob and a designer clutch was staring at her from near the oyster bar. Vanessa Keene. They'd gone to Westfield High together. Vanessa had once called her a freak in front of the entire 10th grade English class for crying during Of Mice and Men. "Oh my God," Vanessa said, in the voice people used when they'd spotted roadkill. "I didn't even recognize you. You look so different." "Hi, Vanessa. I heard about the divorce. I am so sorry, truly." Her eyes weren't sorry. Her eyes were a laboratory. "And you have a little girl, right? How old is she now?" 8. 8. Wow, time flies. And what are you doing these days? Are you still... She trailed off, waiting for Lena to fill in the rest. Lena held her gaze. "I work at Mercy General, nights." "Oh, a nurse, that's so noble." "I'm in billing." "Oh." The word fell like a dropped plate. "Well, that's steady, I guess." Behind Vanessa, a man in a charcoal suit was making his way toward them, a glass of scotch in one hand and a pregnant blonde on his arm. Lena's stomach dropped into her shoes. "Lena," the man said. "Derek!" Vanessa's eyes lit up with the joy of a woman who has just been handed a front row ticket. "Derek Brooks." "Derek Mallory," she corrected herself. He'd taken his new wife's name for the brand, whatever that meant, looked exactly the way Lena remembered him looking during the last 3 years of their marriage. Handsome, polished, and somehow vaguely embarrassed to be seen with her. "I didn't know you were going to be here," he said. "Catherine's my sister." Right, of course." He cleared his throat. "Lena, this is Brittany. Brittany, this is Lena." Brittany was 26. Lena knew this because her mother had been sending her screenshots of Brittany's Instagram for the last 2 years, under the headline, "Just So You Know." Brittany was beautiful in the way expensive things were beautiful. Lip fillers, spray tan, a wedding band with a diamond the size of a pistachio. "Oh my gosh, hi," Brittany said, and her voice was so bright and so genuine that Lena almost hated her less. "Derek's told me so much about you. And little, Maddie?" "Maya." "Maya, right. She must be getting so big." "She's 8. Wow, 8. Derek, can you imagine? Bentley's only 4 months and he's already up." "Brittany." Derek put his hand on her back. Gently. "Honey, why don't you go find my mother? She wanted to introduce you to the Ashbys." "Oh, yeah, okay, nice to meet you, Lena." She drifted off in a cloud of floral perfume, and it was just the 3 of them now, Derek, Vanessa, and Lena. And Vanessa looked like a woman who had been handed the remote control to her own personal reality show. "You look good, Lena," Derek said. He didn't mean it. His eyes were doing that math again. The how much worse has she gotten math. Thanks, she said. So do you. How's Maya? She's good. She made honor roll again. That's great. Listen, about the check for last month, I meant to talk to you. Not here, Derek. I know, Derek! He had the decency to look down at his glass. She realized, with a clarity that felt almost physical, that she couldn't stand here another second. Not with Vanessa watching like she was the Super Bowl. Not with Derek smelling like someone else's cologne. Not with her mother across the room laughing too loudly at something Catherine had said. I need to find the restroom, Lena said. She turned and walked. She didn't go to the restroom. She went to table 22, and she sat behind her pillar, and she stared at the linen tablecloth until her vision blurred. Don't cry, she told herself. Not here. Do not cry here. Drive home. Park. Cry in the car. Don't give them the satisfaction. A waiter appeared at her elbow. Bread, ma'am? Please. He put a roll on her plate and disappeared. The bread was cold. She ate it anyway. Dinner was served at 8. Lena kept her head down and pushed her food around her plate. A delicate little piece of salmon with something green under it, some kind of puree she couldn't identify, and tried to become as small as the chair she was sitting on. The woman with the phone had been replaced by another couple, who introduced themselves as Brandon's uncle and aunt from Greenwich. They were pleasant in the distracted way of rich people at obligations. They asked her how she knew the happy couple. She said she was the bride's sister. They blinked. Oh, the aunt said, how lovely. We didn't realize Catherine had a sister. Lena smiled so hard her face hurt. Most people don't. The best man's toast was long and full of inside jokes about Brandon's bachelor party in Miami. The maid of honor's toast was Catherine's college roommate, a tall brunette named Tess, who told a story about how Catherine had once cried for 3 hours because her cat died, and how that was when Tess knew Catherine was the most tender-hearted soul she'd ever met. Lena had bought Catherine that cat for her 16th birthday, pooled 8 months of babysitting money. Catherine had named it after a character from a TV show. When Tess raised her glass, Lena raised hers. When the whole room toasted to love, Lena toasted too. And then her mother took the microphone. I want to say a few words, Diane said, in the voice she used for PTA meetings and funeral receptions. About my daughter. Daughter, singular. Catherine has been, since the day she was born, the brightest light in my life. When she was 3, I knew she was going to be extraordinary. She could read before she was 4. She could play piano by 6. When she set her mind on Princeton, I never doubted for a second that she'd get in. And she did, with honors. And now to see her marry a man as brilliant and as kind as Brandon. Lena watched her mother's face, that beatific, watery smile, the genuine, unperformed love in Diane's eyes. I feel like my life's greatest work is complete. My beautiful girl, my only girl. Lena's fork hit the edge of the plate. Nobody noticed. The couple from Greenwich exchanged a polite, oblivious glance. Somebody started clapping. Somebody else stood up. A wave of applause moved through the ballroom, and Catherine was crying, and Diane was crying, and Brandon was kissing Diane's cheek, and the orchestra was swelling into something sweeping and cinematic. And Lena Brooks, 34 years old, mother of 1, divorced, night shift billing clerk at Mercy General Hospital, older sister of the only girl Diane Brooks had ever loved, sat behind a marble pillar in a borrowed dress and felt something inside her go very, very quiet. She picked up her purse. She picked up her water glass. She took one last sip because her throat had gone dry. She pushed back her chair. Excuse me. The couple from Greenwich didn't even look up. She walked, not toward the door, at first. She wasn't thinking clearly enough for that. She walked toward the back of the ballroom, toward the hallway that led to the restrooms and the service corridors and the sad little alcove with the courtesy phones. She pushed through a set of heavy, gold-handled doors and found herself in a quieter, dimmer space, a small lounge between the ballroom and the restrooms, with 2 leather sofas and a narrow bar tucked into one wall. She sat down on the sofa. She put her head in her hands. She did not cry. Not yet. She had made a deal with herself, back in the car at the lot at Mercy, and she was going to honor it. Not here. Not where Vanessa Keene could see. She sat there for a long time. She was not alone. At the far end of the lounge, half in shadow, a man was sitting at the bar with his back to the wall, a glass of something dark in his hand. He was alone too. He hadn't looked at her when she came in. He hadn't looked at her now. She noticed him only because the room was so quiet that his silence was its own sound. She didn't pay attention to what he looked like, not really. Tall, dark suit. The kind of stillness some men have when they're used to being watched but aren't currently being watched. He could have been anybody. A minute passed, 2. Then a voice, low, even, unhurried, came from the direction of the bar. "Are you all right?" Lena didn't lift her head right away. She wasn't sure he was talking to her. "Miss," she looked up. He had turned on his stool, but he hadn't stood. He was watching her with a kind of detached, patient curiosity. Not concerned, not flirtatious, curious, like she was a puzzle he had the time to solve. He was maybe 40, sharp jaw, a faint scar at the corner of his left eyebrow, dark hair cut close, the kind of cut that cost a lot of money. His suit was the color of a shadow, and his tie was black, and there was something in the way he sat, shoulders back, feet planted, one hand loose around the glass, that made Lena think, for some reason, of a man waiting for a phone call he already knew would come. "I'm fine," she said. Her voice came out scratchier than she'd meant. "All right." He turned back to his glass. She expected him to leave it there. Most men would have. She braced herself for the follow-up. "You sure?" "You don't look fine." The kind of thing men said when they wanted something. It didn't come. He just sat there drinking his drink, facing the bar again, letting her have her corner of the room. Oddly, it was that, the not pushing, that unclenched something in her chest. She took a breath, let it out. "Sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to snap." "You didn't snap." "I was about to." He made a sound that might have been a laugh. It was brief. One syllable. "Fair enough." Silence for a minute. Then, without turning around, "It's the Brooks Whitfield wedding, isn't it?" "Yes." "Bride or groom?" "Bride." "Friend?" She hesitated. "Sister." Now he did turn. Just a small swivel on the stool. His eyes, dark, heavy-lidded, unreadable, moved across her face with a kind of quick, professional thoroughness, like he was appraising a piece of art for a client who would ask specific questions later. "You don't look like a woman who just watched her sister get married." "No?" "You look like a woman who just watched somebody die." She laughed, actually laughed, because she had not expected him to say anything that honest. It came out wet and surprised, almost a hiccup. "I'm sorry," he said, mildly. "Was that too much?" "No, it was accurate." He turned back to the bar. Another minute passed. Lena pressed her palms against her thighs and focused on breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. A trick her therapist had taught her 4 years ago and which she had forgotten about until this exact moment. "I don't suppose," the man said, still not looking at her, "you'd tell me what happened." "Nothing happened." "Something happened." "My mother stood up in front of 300 people and said my sister was her only daughter." It was out of her mouth before she realized she was going to say it. He was quiet for a beat. Then, slowly, he set his glass down on the bar. "That," he said, "is a very specific kind of cruelty." "She didn't mean it." "Didn't she?" Lena didn't answer. She didn't know. She had been asking herself that question her entire life. The man pushed himself off the stool and walked, without any hurry, to the sofa across from hers. He didn't ask if he could sit. He just sat. One leg crossed over the other, his glass still in his hand. Up close, she could see the glint of a watch at his wrist. A good one. The kind of good that didn't need to announce itself. "My name is Adrian Vance," he said. "Lena Brooks." "Brooks. So you really are the sister." "Unfortunately." He almost smiled. Almost. It didn't quite reach. "Lena Brooks," he said. "May I ask you something odd?" She tilted her head. Something about him. The stillness, the level voice, the way he didn't fill the silence, made her feel, strangely, more awake than she had in months. "How odd." "Very." "Go ahead." He studied her for a long moment, long enough that she almost looked away. "How would you feel," he said, About walking back into that ballroom on the arm of a stranger. She blinked. Excuse me? I have a problem, he said, as calmly as if he were ordering dinner. I need to make an appearance at a reception inside that ballroom in approximately... He glanced at his watch. 11 minutes. I was supposed to arrive with a companion. My companion is no longer available. The people I need to impress will read a great deal into whether I walk in alone or not. I don't understand what that has to do with me. I'm asking you to walk in with me. Walk in with you, as my companion. She stared at him. Is this a joke? No. Is this... Are you drunk? He lifted his glass, considered it, and set it back down without drinking. Not yet. I don't know you. No. You don't know me. No. Then, Miss Brooks. He leaned forward, and there was something in his voice now that wasn't quite command and wasn't quite request. I'm not going to pretend this isn't strange. It is. I am going to offer you a trade. You walk into that ballroom with me, on my arm, and stay at my side for the duration of the reception. 2 hours, 3 at the outside. In exchange, I will make it very clear to everyone in that room that you are the most important person in it. That's insane. Probably. I have a daughter at home. I'm not asking you to spend the night with me, Miss Brooks. I'm asking you to walk across a room. Why me? Because you're here, because you're alone, because... And now his eyes did something, a flicker of something almost warm. You have, for some reason, exactly the face I need. The face of a woman who doesn't care what any of them think. I care, she said. I care very much. Then pretend you don't. For one night. She opened her mouth, closed it. Who are you? She asked. A businessman. That's not an answer. It's the only one I'm prepared to give a stranger in a hotel lounge, Miss Brooks. But I assure you I am not going to harm you. I have no interest in harming you. I have a very specific, very boring professional need, and you are, by a very unusual coincidence, standing exactly where I require someone to be standing. Sitting, she said stupidly. Sitting, then. She let out a breath. What would I have to do? Walk in with me. Smile. Let me introduce you to a small number of men who will shake your hand and not remember your face by Tuesday. Accept a glass of champagne. Dance, if the occasion calls for it. Sit at my table for dinner. And then you go home. The stranger vanishes. You never see me again. And my family will see you walk in on my arm. That, more than anything else, was the part that hooked her. We'll see you walk in on my arm. She thought about Catherine at the head table, cradling Brandon's hand. She thought about her mother dabbing her eyes over my only girl. She thought about Derek with his manicured new wife and the child he'd named after a neighborhood in England. She thought about Vanessa Keene's face. I don't have the right dress, she heard herself say. Your dress is fine. It's 2 seasons old. It's the right color. I don't even know what that means. He almost smiled again. It means you're not going to look like you tried too hard, which is, frankly, the point. She stared at him. Her phone buzzed in her purse. She didn't look at it. She already knew it was Maya, probably sending a picture of the dog, or a question about whether she could stay up 10 minutes later. Maya. Her whole world. And for Maya's sake, for the girl who had to watch her mother be small every single day, Lena Brooks did something she had not done in 8 years. She took a risk. This is crazy, she said. Yes. I'm going to regret this. Possibly. If anything goes wrong, I walk out. Immediately. Agreed. I'm not going to touch you. We're not going to act like Miss Brooks, Adrian Vance said very gently. I'm going to offer you my arm. You are going to rest your hand on it. You are going to smile politely when I introduce you, and you are going to let me do the talking. That is the extent of it. Anything else will be because you choose it. She nodded because she didn't trust her voice. He stood. He set his glass on the small table between them. He extended one hand. Shall we? She didn't take his hand. Not right away. She stood on her own, smoothed her dress, lifted her chin, then, and only then, she slid her arm through his. His forearm was solid, warm through the fabric. He didn't tense, he didn't smile. He just gave her a small, steady nod, a this way, and walked her toward the gold-handled doors. At the doors, he paused. "Breathe," he said, quietly. "You're going to walk in. You're going to look at me and not at anyone else for the first 10 seconds. After that, you can do whatever you want." "Why the first 10 seconds?" "Because that's how long it takes a room to decide what it thinks of you." The doors swung open. The noise hit her first, a wall of music and chatter and laughter and clinking silverware. The light hit her next, all that gold and crystal and the flash somewhere of a photographer's bulb catching the edge of a chandelier. And then the room saw her. She felt it. She felt it the way you feel a temperature change. A small, collective half-second of readjustment as heads turned toward the sound of the opening doors and found, instead of a waiter or a late guest or another couple drifting back from the restrooms, Adrian Vance in his shadow-colored suit with a woman on his arm. A woman in a 2-season-old navy dress and plain black flats. Lena did what he had told her to do. She looked at him. Only at him. She kept her face still, her chin level, her hand resting lightly in the crook of his arm. He was looking down at her very slightly with an expression she could not read. "Smile," he murmured. "Not much, just a little, like you know a joke they don't." She almost laughed. She let the laugh become the smile. The first 10 seconds ended. She looked up, and the whole ballroom, the orchestra, the waiters, the chandeliers, 300 people in designer silk, was staring. Right at her. Catherine had stopped mid-sentence at the head table, her champagne flute halfway to her lips. Brandon was frowning politely, trying to place the stranger. Derek Mallory, who had been leaning down to whisper something to Brittany, had gone very still. Diane Brooks, Lena's mother, was staring at her eldest daughter with a look of such absolute, unrehearsed shock that for a moment Lena thought she might have been having a stroke. Adrian's arm pressed hers, subtly. "Walk." They walked. Not fast. He set the pace, and the pace was "nobody in this room is going to rush me." They moved through the tables like a slow, deliberate current, and Lena could feel people turning in their chairs as they passed, could feel the whispers starting up behind her like a brush fire. "Who is that? Is that Lena? Lena Brooks? No, that can't be Lena Brooks." She didn't look at any of them. She kept her eyes on the path ahead and her hand on Adrian's arm, and every now and then she let herself glance up at him, the way a woman might glance at a man she knew very well. And every time she did, he met her eyes with the same steady, inscrutable calm, like the two of them were sharing a private frequency the rest of the room couldn't pick up. Halfway across the ballroom, a man with silver hair and a politician's smile stepped into their path. "Adrian, Harlan, I wasn't sure you'd make it." "I wasn't sure either." Adrian's voice had not changed pitch, but the quality of it had. There was a weight to it now, something formal. "Harlan, let me introduce you. Lena, this is Harlan Whitfield, Brandon's father. Harlan, this is Lena." Lena's heart stopped. Harlan Whitfield, Catherine's new father-in-law. The host, the man whose check had paid for half of this wedding. She did not allow herself to hesitate. She extended her hand. "Mr. Whitfield, it's a pleasure." "Lena. Brooks. Brooks." Harlan's eyes narrowed a fraction. "Any relation to—" "The bride," Adrian said, pleasantly. "Lena is Catherine's older sister." There was a long, slow second in which Harlan Whitfield's entire face recalibrated. Lena watched it happen. She watched him take in her dress, her shoes, the slight tremor in her hand, the fact that she had walked in on the arm of a man whose name appeared to mean something in this room. And she watched all of that information sort itself into a new shape in his head. "Older sister," Harlan said. "Yes, sir." "I had no idea Catherine had a sister." "Most people don't," Lena said evenly. Harlan Whitfield held her eyes for a beat too long. Then, unexpectedly, he let out a short, dry laugh. "Well," he said, "Adrian, you always did have a particular taste. Lena, would you excuse us a moment?" "Of course." Adrian turned to her and, very lightly, very deliberately, set his free hand over hers where it rested on his arm. The gesture was small, almost nothing. It was nothing. It was not nothing. "Stay close," he said quietly, just for her. "Yes." She stood in the middle of the ballroom. 300 people, chandeliers, the orchestra easing into a slow, winding waltz, and she let herself breathe for the first time all night. Adrian and Harlan Whitfield were talking about something. She did not catch the words. She did not need to, because at the far end of the ballroom, her mother was walking toward her. Diane Brooks was moving across the floor in a champagne-colored gown, her face pale, her smile fixed, and Lena knew, the way a daughter always knows, that Diane was trying to decide whether to be furious or thrilled. When Diane reached her, she did what Lena had known she would do. She leaned in, kissed the air next to her older daughter's cheek, and whispered, in the bright, confidential voice she used when she wanted to be overheard, "Lena, honey, who on earth is that?" "His name is Adrian Vance," Lena said. "Vance, Vance." Her mother's eyes flickered. Something was happening behind them. Something was shifting. Are you two? Lena let herself smile. Just a little. Just like Adrian had said. Like she knew a joke her mother didn't. "Mom," she said softly, "can we not do this here?" Diane drew back, blinking. For the first time in Lena's adult life, her mother did not have a follow-up question. Adrian turned back from Harlan, lifted Lena's hand off his arm, and, with a small formal bow of his head to Diane, pressed his lips very briefly to the back of Lena's knuckles. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, "you must be Lena's mother. The resemblance is striking." "Oh," Diane said. Just that. "Oh. If you'll excuse us, I believe they're about to start the dancing, and Lena promised me the first one." Of course." He led Lena away. Halfway to the dance floor, he leaned down, close enough that only she could hear, and murmured, "You're doing beautifully." "I'm going to throw up." "Don't. Not in this dress." She did laugh then, a real surprise laugh that caught in her throat and came out as something almost like a sob. He guided her onto the dance floor. He placed one hand lightly at the small of her back and took her other hand in his and began, slowly, expertly, without any fuss, to move her in a wide, easy circle across the polished parquet. The orchestra played something soft. She didn't know the song. "Adrian? Why did you really do this?" He didn't answer right away. "I meant what I said," he said finally. "I needed a companion. You were there." "That's not the whole answer." "No. What's the whole answer?" He looked down at her. His eyes, this close, were not as dark as she'd thought. There was something gray at the edges. Something tired. "Because I saw you sitting there," he said, looking at the wall, and I thought to myself that someone was making a mistake. And I don't like seeing mistakes get made. That sounds rehearsed. It's not. I'm as surprised as you are. She tilted her head back and looked at the chandeliers and let him move her through the turn, and somewhere behind her she could feel the weight of 100 stares, her mother's, her sister's, Derek's, Vanessa's, and for the first time in years she did not care what any of them were thinking. "Adrian," she said. "Lena. What happens tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," he said, "is tomorrow." The song ended. The orchestra paused. He did not let go of her hand. "We have 2 more hours," he said. "Can you do 2 more hours?" She looked up at him. The stranger in the shadow-colored suit. The man who had appeared out of nothing in a quiet lounge between the ballroom and the restrooms. The man whose reasons she did not know, and whose life she did not understand, and whose arm she was realizing with a slow and unfamiliar warmth she was not in any hurry to let go of. A man, she would understand much later, whose world ran on threats she could not yet imagine, and who had just, without quite meaning to, pulled her into it. "Yes," Lena Brooks said, "I can do 2 more hours." And somewhere in the back of the ballroom, at a table behind a marble pillar, a single roll of cold bread sat untouched on an empty plate, and nobody in the room, not her mother, not her sister, not her ex-husband, not Vanessa Keene, was looking at it anymore. They were all looking at her. The second song started before Lena was ready for it. She had expected Adrian to let go of her when the music shifted, to walk her off the floor and hand her a glass of champagne and call the whole performance finished. Instead, his hand stayed where it was, low on her back, steady, the heat of his palm bleeding through the thin navy fabric, and his feet picked up the new rhythm like he'd been listening for it all along. "One more," he said quietly. "Trust me. I'm not sure that's a word I get to throw around tonight." "Fair." He guided her through a slow turn. "Then indulge me." Over his shoulder, she caught Catherine watching them from the head table. Her sister's face was doing something complicated. Not anger, not yet. Something closer to the expression Catherine used to wear as a little girl when Lena got a birthday card from their father and Catherine didn't. A kind of stunned recalculation, the math of the family quietly refusing to add up. "Your sister's staring," Adrian said without looking. "I know. Does she usually stare?" "She usually doesn't have to. She's the one people stare at." He said it the way a man says things he's already filed away for later. Lena let her eyes drift past him to the rest of the room. Vanessa Keene was at the bar, leaning sideways into a conversation with two women Lena didn't recognize, and every few seconds Vanessa's head would pivot back toward the dance floor like a compass needle that couldn't help itself. Derek had moved Brittany to a corner table where Brittany was touching her own stomach in the absent, protective way pregnant women did. And Derek was watching Lena the way a man watches a car he used to own pull out of a stranger's driveway. She hated that she noticed. She hated more that she liked being noticed. "Adrian." "The man you were talking to, Whitfield. What about him? Is he someone I should be afraid of?" He considered that for a beat longer than she expected. "No," he said. "Not afraid. Careful, maybe. He's the kind of man who remembers faces and remembers who introduced them. He won't forget you by Tuesday. He'll have his assistant look up your name before he finishes his coffee tomorrow." "Look up my name." "Yes." "What will he find?" "A billing clerk at Mercy General Hospital, a divorced mother, a small apartment in Westfield, a clean record, an ex-husband named Derek Mallory who filed a petition to reduce child support in March and lost." She missed a step. He caught her smoothly like the misstep was part of the choreography. "How do you know all that?" she said. Not a question, a statement pretending to be one. "I don't." "You just listed my life." "I listed what a man like Harlan Whitfield will be able to find in 20 minutes on the internet, Lena. That's not the same as knowing you." "But you knew about the petition." I guessed. Men who leave pretty wives for pretty girlfriends usually try to lower the price tag within 3 years. It's a pattern." Jesus. Not a judgment, an observation. It felt like a judgment. "That's because it was about you." She laughed, quietly, and hated a little bit that she laughed. He danced better than Derek ever had. Derek had always led with his chest, pushing her around the floor like furniture. Adrian led from his hand, his weight, the quiet authority of his feet. He didn't push. He suggested. She followed because her body couldn't figure out how not to. The song slid toward its final chorus, and he leaned in just enough that his voice dropped under the strings. "After this, I want you to eat something." I ate. "You pushed salmon around a plate and drank half a glass of champagne. How do you—" "I've been in this room longer than you think, Miss Brooks." That landed somewhere low and cold. "You were watching me." "I was watching the room. You were in it." "That's not a denial." "It's not." The music ended. The floor broke into a polite, scattered applause. Adrian drew back half a step, but he did not let go of her hand. He led her off the dance floor the way a man leads a woman off a stage, her palm resting on the back of his, elbows just so, and the crowd parted for him without thinking about why. He deposited her, gently, at a small round high-top table near the edge of the room. 2 champagne flutes appeared at his elbow without him having to ask. He handed her one. "Drink this slowly. Let me bring you something that is actually food." "Adrian, eat, Lena." He said her first name like it had weight, like he was placing it somewhere careful. She watched him walk away toward the buffet table, and for the first time since the ceremony, she noticed what it did to a ballroom when Adrian Vance crossed it. The slight lean of heads, the conversations that paused half a beat and then restarted a touch too loud, the way the photographer tracked him with the lens without ever quite taking the shot. "Lena." She turned. Her sister had come up on her left, silently, the way a cat arrives at a kitchen doorway. Catherine was still holding her bouquet. Lena had not seen her set it down all night. Her mascara had smudged very faintly at one corner, the only crack in the veneer. "Hi, Katie. Don't call me that." Sorry, Catherine. Who is he? His name is Adrian. I heard. Adrian who? Vance. Vance like the... I don't know what he's like, Catherine. Her sister's eyes moved over her face, searching. You don't know, or you won't say. I met him tonight. The lie came out before Lena had decided to tell it. Not a full lie. A compression. An editorial choice. It felt terrible and fine at the same time. You met him tonight, Catherine repeated. Yes. And you're dancing with him at my wedding. You weren't using the dance floor. Don't. Don't what? Don't pretend this is normal, Lena. I've been to 12 weddings in the last 2 years. I've seen a lot of tables of 22. None of them walked back in on the arm of a man who made Harlan Whitfield stop talking mid-sentence. Is that what he did? He walked up to Brandon's father and made him stop talking mid-sentence. Yes. Lena set down the champagne flute. Her hand had started very faintly to shake again. Catherine, I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to tell me what's going on. Nothing's going on. Is this... Catherine lowered her voice. Is this because of what Mom said? Lena didn't answer. She didn't mean it like that. Okay. She's been planning this night for 3 years. She's on her second glass of wine. She got carried away. Okay, Catherine. Don't do this tonight. Do not do this tonight. Not at my wedding. Across the ballroom, Adrian was working his way back through the crowd with a plate in one hand, exchanging a word with a gray-haired man in a tuxedo who had stopped him halfway. Lena watched the gray-haired man shake Adrian's hand with both of his. She watched Adrian nod politely and keep moving. I'm not doing anything, Catherine. I'm standing at a table. I danced with a man. That's it. He kissed your hand. He said hello to Mom. He kissed your hand, Lena. Men don't do that in Westfield. Men do that in movies. You have a very narrow idea of what men do. I have a correct idea of what men do. Her sister's voice had gone thin. There was a shine on her lower eyelashes that hadn't been there a minute ago. Up close, Lena could see that Catherine's hands were trembling around the stems of the bouquet. Something small and wrong turned over inside Lena's chest. Hey, she said, softer. Hey, it's okay. Go back to Brandon. Tell me he's not a problem. He's not a problem. Swear. Catherine. Swear to me, Lena. She thought about Adrian's even, inscrutable voice saying, I have a very specific, very boring professional need. She thought about the way his hand had covered hers in front of Harlan Whitfield. She thought about how the word professional could mean almost anything. He's not a problem for you, she said. He's here with me. That's all he is tonight. Catherine stared at her for a long second. Then she nodded, once, and walked back toward the head table on shoes that were a quarter-inch too tight. Adrian arrived at the high top 30 seconds later. He set down a small plate. Bread, cheese, something that looked like a savory tart, 2 fat strawberries, and looked at her. What did she say to you? Nothing. Lena. She wanted to know who you are. What did you tell her? That I don't know. He almost smiled. Correct answer. Adrian, if she calls tomorrow and tells my mother to look up your name, she won't find anything she can use against you. He said it mildly, the way another man might say it might rain. That I can promise you. Why? Because there isn't anything. Or because you've made sure there isn't. He looked at her for a long beat. Eat the tart, he said. It's good. Her stomach, which had been holding itself shut all night, growled so loudly she heard it over the orchestra. She took the tart. She ate it in 2 bites. She ate the bread next. She ate the cheese. She was halfway through a strawberry when she realized Adrian was not eating, that he had not picked up a plate for himself, that he had been standing across from her at the little table with his hands folded and his eyes moving, patient and careful, over the room behind her. You don't eat? Not at events like this. Why not? I don't like food I didn't see prepared. It was said so flatly that for a second Lena thought she had misheard him. Then she set the strawberry down very slowly. Adrian. What kind of businessman are you? The boring kind. The kind that watches rooms. The kind that won't eat food he didn't see prepared. The careful kind. Is there a difference? Yes. He didn't elaborate. She didn't push. She didn't, she realized, particularly want to know the answer yet. Across the room, a waiter tapped a small silver bell. The orchestra softened. Catherine and Brandon were being called back to the floor for the cake cutting. A photographer moved into position. The crowd drifted, obediently, toward the long white table where a five-tiered confection stood waiting with a little sugar swan on top. Adrian turned slightly, and Lena followed his gaze, and she saw that Harlan Whitfield was watching them again. Not rudely, not openly, just watching. The way a man at a gas station watches a car he's thinking about buying. "Adrian," she said quietly. Tell me one true thing about you." "That is a dangerous request. I think I've earned it tonight." He was quiet for long enough that she thought he wasn't going to answer. Then, without looking at her, "I had a brother." "Had?" "Yes. I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was a long time ago." "Older or younger?" "Younger, by 4 years." "What was his name?" "Michael." "Michael Vance." "Yes." "That's two true things." The corner of his mouth moved. Not a smile. Something adjacent. "Then you've earned your money's worth." The cake was cut. The champagne was poured. Catherine fed Brandon a bite of white buttercream, and Brandon fed her a bite back, and both of them were laughing, and Diane was crying again. And for a moment, a small, honest moment, Lena looked at her little sister and let herself feel something that was not bitterness. She thought about the cat. She thought about the thunderstorms. She thought about being 13 and letting Catherine sleep under her arm, because Catherine was afraid of the dark, and Lena wasn't. Not yet. Lena Brooks hadn't been afraid of the dark until much later. Then her phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out under the edge of the table so nobody could see. Maya. "Mommy, Mrs. D said you sounded sad on your text." Maya. "Are you sad?" Maya. "You can come home early if you want Lena's throat closed." She stared at the 3 little gray bubbles until her eyes stopped cooperating. "Lena." She didn't look up. She couldn't, yet. She turned the phone toward Adrian because it was easier than saying it out loud. He read the messages. His face did not change. But something in the line of his shoulders did. "Your daughter." Maya. "How old?" 8. He handed the phone back to her. He did not say she sounds sweet or kids are amazing or any of the dead polite things people said when they found out about Maya. He only said, "Text her back. Tell her you're fine." "I am fine." "Then tell her that." Lena typed with her thumbs, blinking hard. "I'm not sad, sweetie. I'm at a fancy party. I'll be home by 11. Brush your teeth for real this time. Love you to the moon and back." She hit send. She slid the phone back into her purse. "Okay," she said, to no one in particular. "Okay." Adrian had straightened, a small change in the set of his shoulders, the way a man changes stance when he hears a door open behind him. "Lena." "Your ex-husband is on his way over." "What?" "Don't turn around." She didn't turn around. She lifted her champagne flute instead because her hands needed something to hold, and she watched Adrian's face the way a sailor watches the barometer. "How far?" 10 feet, bringing the blonde. "Oh, God." "Listen to me. Let him speak first. Do not explain yourself. Do not introduce me. Let him ask." "Adrian, trust me for 30 seconds. "Lena." Derek's voice. Bright. Performed. The voice he used at his mother's house when he wanted to convince everyone the divorce had been amicable. She turned. Derek was smiling. Brittany was hovering a step behind him, holding a plate of cake and watching Adrian with large, undisguised curiosity. Derek's eyes flicked to Adrian and back to Lena and back to Adrian, and each flick cost him something visible. "I didn't want to leave without saying congratulations," Derek said. "Catherine looks beautiful." "Yes," Lena said. "How's Maya? Is she good? I was going to swing by next weekend. We can talk about that later, Derek." Right, sure, He glanced at Adrian again. "I didn't realize you were seeing anyone." Lena didn't answer. She had been told not to explain herself. She was going to try very hard not to explain herself. Adrian stepped in, smoothly, like a man closing a door. Adrian Vance. Derek Mallory. They shook hands. Derek's grip was the too tight kind men used when they were trying to prove something their face was too honest to hide. Adrian's grip, Lena noticed, did not move at all. His hand simply received Derek's and let him do whatever he needed to do with it. Vance, Derek said, that name is common enough. Right, you're, what, local? I'm from out of town. Business? Among other reasons. Huh. Derek's smile thinned. And you two, how? Derek, Lena said, you don't need to know how. I'm not trying to pry, Lee. I'm just, don't call me that. Something flickered across Derek's face. The old flinch. The little boy flinch he used to make when she raised her voice at him across the kitchen island at 3 a.m. over bills. And she hated that she remembered it, hated that she knew him well enough to recognize it. Brittany, to her credit, seemed to sense that her husband was about to embarrass both of them. She tugged lightly at Derek's elbow. Honey, the cake. In a minute, Britt. It's going to get melty. In a minute. Brittany's smile cracked, very briefly. Then it set again. Lena felt, unwillingly, a thin thread of pity. It was nice to meet you, Mr. Vance, Brittany said. Lena, you look beautiful, really. Thanks, Brittany. Derek didn't move. His eyes were still on Adrian. I'm just curious what a guy from out of town is doing at my sister-in-law's wedding. Ex-sister-in-law, Adrian said. Pleasantly. Lena made a sound that was not quite a laugh. Derek's jaw worked. Right. Ex. To answer your question, Adrian said, I'm here because I was invited. I'm standing at this table because Lena is standing at this table. Is there a third question, Mr. Mallory, or can we return to our evening? It was said so evenly, with such complete absence of heat, that it took Derek several seconds to realize he had been dismissed. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Lena, looked at Brittany, looked at the cake, as if the cake might offer him an exit. Nice to meet you, he said stiffly, and walked away. Brittany mouthed sorry at Lena over her shoulder and was gone. Lena let out a long breath. Her hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't humiliation. It was something else, something warmer. Adrian? Thank you. For what? For not letting him make me small. He turned to her. His face was still, but there was something under the stillness now. Something warmer than the patient, diagnostic calm he'd worn in the lounge. Something closer to human. He was never going to make you small tonight, Lena. I wasn't going to let him. But you have to understand, I was the backup. You were already refusing him. I wasn't. You told him not to call you Lee. You told him you'd talk about Maya later. You set 2 boundaries in 30 seconds. That's not a woman being made small. That's a woman remembering she has teeth. She stared at him. You make it sound like you studied me. I watched you for 20 minutes before I spoke to you in the lounge. She froze. 20 minutes? Yes. Why? Because a man in my position does not approach strangers in hotel lounges, Lena. Not without watching first. I saw you walk in alone. I saw your mother not meet your eyes. I saw your sister not look for you. I saw your ex-husband ignore you. I saw the waiter call you ma'am before he called you a guest. I saw you eat cold bread at table 22. She felt her throat close. That's calculated. Yes? Why are you telling me this now? Because you deserve to know what you're standing inside of. And what am I standing inside of? He held her eyes. A decision I made, he said, between the 3rd and 4th minute of watching you. I thought you were the right person for a very specific problem I had. That hasn't changed. What has changed is that I've decided I owe you the truth about that. That's not a full truth either, Adrian. No. There's more. Yes. Will you tell me? He looked at her for a long, long moment, long enough that she felt the ballroom shrink around them to the 2-foot circle of air between their faces. Not tonight, he said finally. Tonight I want you to enjoy the rest of your sister's wedding. Tonight I want you to eat another tart. Tonight I want you to let your mother wonder. Tomorrow. He paused. Tomorrow, if you want, I will tell you more. If I want. If you want. And if I don't want. Then tonight is all there is, and you keep whatever memory of it makes you feel less invisible. And we go our separate ways with no one the worse. She took a breath. The strings in the corner of the ballroom were sliding into a gentle, older song, something slow enough that couples were pairing off again. Adrian. Dance with me again. He set down his untouched glass. He offered his hand. She took it. This time, walking back onto the floor, she didn't look at her mother. She didn't look at Derek. She didn't look at Catherine. She looked at Adrian, and she matched his pace, and when he drew her in, a fraction closer than before, just enough that the whole room noticed, she allowed herself for one song to be exactly as seen as he wanted her to be. They danced through the end of the song. They danced through the next one. At one point, she laid her cheek very briefly against the lapel of his jacket, and she felt him inhale once and then hold it, carefully, as if he had not been expecting that. He did not pull her closer. He did not push her away. He just let her rest there for the length of one slow verse, his hand at her back. And when she lifted her head again, he did not look at her, which she was grateful for, because she could not have borne being looked at in that moment. After the song, he walked her back to the high top. Harlan Whitfield was waiting. "Adrian, Miss Brooks, might I borrow you both for a moment?" "Of course," Adrian said. He led them, not to a table, but to a small set of doors at the side of the ballroom that opened onto a private anteroom. A library, Lena saw when they stepped in. Leather chairs, a cold fireplace, a single decanter on a sideboard. Two men she didn't recognize were already standing in the room, drinks in hand, and both of them turned when Harlan opened the door. She felt Adrian's hand move very slightly to the small of her back. A message. "Stay close. Say little." "Gentlemen," Harlan said warmly, "I don't believe you've met Adrian's—" He paused. Adrian did not fill the silence. "Is she—" "Companion," Harlan finished. "Miss Lena Brooks, Catherine's older sister." The first man, silver-haired, tall, with the particular tan of a man who kept a boat in the Caribbean, extended a hand. "Marcus Thorne." "Mr. Thorne." "And this is Richard Ellery." "Miss Brooks." She shook both hands. She smiled the way Adrian had told her to smile. Small, a little amused, like she knew a joke they didn't. She did not know a joke. She was terrified. She smiled anyway. Marcus Thorne looked at Adrian. "Adrian, you don't usually bring dates to things like this." "I don't usually attend things like this." And yet here you are." Thorne's eyes slid, without subtlety, over Lena. "Miss Brooks, what is it you do, exactly?" Adrian's hand did not move, but she felt somewhere in the architecture of him the word careful. She thought about lying, about inventing something glamorous. "I'm in hospitality, I'm in finance, I'm between projects," all the lies rich women told. She didn't. "I work in the billing department at Mercy General Hospital, Mr. Thorne. Nights." The room adjusted. Richard Ellery's eyebrows lifted, once, very slightly. Marcus Thorne's face did something subtler, a tightening at the corners of the mouth that might have been surprise, or might have been the beginning of a laugh he was too polite to release. Harlan Whitfield, on the other hand, inclined his head with what appeared to be real, reluctant respect. "That's honest work," Harlan said. "It's work," Lena said. "How long?" 6 years. "You like it?" "No, sir. But it's steady, and it lets me be home by morning for my daughter." Something in the room changed, very slightly, the way a pressure system changes before a thunderstorm. Marcus Thorne set his glass down on the sideboard. "Adrian," he said, "step outside with me a moment." "Marcus, just a moment." Adrian's hand at Lena's back pressed, just once. "I'll be quick. Don't move. Don't speak unless spoken to." He followed Thorne out of the library and into the hallway. The door did not quite close. Lena could hear their voices, low and rapid, the words indistinct. Harlan Whitfield poured himself another drink and looked at her. "Miss Brooks?" "Mr. Whitfield, can I ask you a question?" "Yes, sir." "How long have you known Adrian?" She was not going to get this wrong. She was not going to get this wrong. "Not long," she said. "How not long?" "Not long enough to answer questions about him." Harlan smiled. It was a real smile, not a wedding smile. It crinkled at the corners of his eyes. "Good answer." "Thank you." "He's a very particular man, Miss Brooks. I noticed." "You noticed quickly." "I had to." He studied her over the rim of his glass. "You're not his usual type." "I understand that, sir." "I don't think you do. His usual type doesn't exist. He doesn't have one. That's my point. She didn't know what to say to that. She didn't say anything. Marcus is asking him out there, Harlan said gently, whether you're a liability. A liability? Yes. For what? For business he and Adrian are doing. Business that requires Adrian to be, shall we say, unambiguously steady. The kind of steady that doesn't change its mind because of a pretty face. I'm not. I know. That's the point. If you were a pretty face, this wouldn't be a conversation. Pretty faces are easy to plan around. Harlan set down his glass. You are a surprise, Miss Brooks. And surprises in my line of work are either very good or very bad. We don't yet know which kind you are. I'm not in your line of work, Mr. Whitfield. No, that might be why you're a surprise. The door pushed open. Adrian came back in. Marcus Thorne followed a half step behind him, expression neutral. Harlan, we should rejoin the reception. Of course, Adrian turned to Lena. Are you ready to go back in? Yes. Miss Brooks. Marcus Thorne's voice stopped her at the door. A pleasure. Mr. Thorne. I'm sure we'll see each other again. She smiled. She did not answer. Adrian guided her back into the hallway and did not speak until the library door had shut behind them. What did he ask you? He said quietly as they walked. Harlan? Yes. He asked how long I'd known you. What did you tell him? That it wasn't long enough to answer questions about you. He exhaled, not a laugh, but close. Good. Adrian. He said Marcus was asking if I was a liability. Yes. And what did you tell Marcus? He didn't answer immediately. When they reached the edge of the ballroom, he stopped, just short of the doors, and turned to face her. I told him you were my wife. She stared at him. You what? Keep your voice down. You told him I was your wife? I told him we were married, quietly, recently, that your family didn't yet know, that I had brought you tonight to begin introducing you to a world you hadn't lived in. Adrian, Lena, that is not Lena. Listen to me. His voice had dropped. Not angry, not apologetic, just level, the way it had been in the lounge. But his hand had come up, very slightly, like he wanted to touch her elbow and was stopping himself. Marcus Thorne is not a man who lets unexplained things stand. He would have spent the rest of the night digging, and the rest of the month digging, and by Monday morning he would have had a file on you that went back to high school. I needed to give him a version of events that closed the door. A version that was simple, inarguable, boring. Nothing closes a door like a marriage. You invented a marriage. Yes. You invented one and didn't ask me. I didn't have time. You had 3 seconds, Lena. I had 3 seconds. She stared at him. Her hands had gone cold. Adrian, what happens now? He was quiet for a very long moment. Now, he said, I drive you home. And tomorrow, we talk about what kind of marriage a man like Marcus Thorne is going to expect to continue existing. Continue. Tomorrow. Adrian, tomorrow, Lena, please. She didn't know when she had agreed to the word please carrying any weight with her, but it did, suddenly, coming from him. He was not a man who used it casually, she could tell. The ballroom doors swung open for them again. The music swelled. Catherine and Brandon were in the middle of the floor, dancing in a loose circle with Catherine's veil trailing behind her, and Diane was standing near the edge of the dance floor with a champagne flute in her hand. And when Diane saw Lena walk back in on Adrian's arm, calm, composed, unhurried, something crossed her mother's face that Lena had never seen there before. It was not love. Lena was not going to pretend it was love. It was recalculation. Diane Brooks was looking at her older daughter for the first time in a very long time and wondering, openly, visibly, whether she had underestimated her. Adrian guided Lena gently around the edge of the floor. He did not take her back to the high top. He walked her, instead, toward the coat check. We're leaving? She asked. You're leaving. I'll follow in 5 minutes. It's better if we don't walk out together. Why? Because the photograph of us walking in together is the one they'll remember. Walking out together is excess. Restraint is more convincing. Everything you do is calculated. Yes. Does anything you do just happen? He glanced down at her. For the second time all night, something real moved behind his eyes. Tonight, he said. Parts of tonight just happened. Which parts? The part where I sat down across from you in the lounge. That part wasn't in the plan. What was in the plan? A different woman, a different introduction, a different evening entirely. Then why me? He held her eyes. Because you looked like the truth, Lena, and I have not been close to the truth in a very long time. The coat check attendant handed Lena her coat, a cheap black wool thing pilling at the cuffs. Adrian helped her into it like it was the most expensive garment in the building. At the lobby doors, he paused. He took both of her hands in his, not romantically, not for show, the lobby was empty, and he held them, lightly, the way a man holds something that doesn't belong to him yet. There's a black SUV at the curb, he said. Dark Escalade. Plates end in 477. The driver's name is Calvin. He'll take you home. He won't speak to you unless you speak to him first. Adrian, tomorrow at 10, I'll come to your apartment. I'll bring coffee. You can ask me anything you want. You can tell me no at any point, and I will walk away, and Marcus Thorne and Harlan Whitfield and the rest of them will never know your real name. They already know my real name. They know a name. They don't know you. And if I say no tomorrow, then I tell them the marriage ended, quietly. No scandal. Nothing for them to investigate. You go back to your life. And if I say yes, he looked at her for a long time. Then your life changes, he said, and I do not lie to you about the cost. She pulled her hands out of his, not to hurt him, just to hold her own coat around her. The lobby was cold. 10, she said. Coffee, cream, 2 sugars. Noted. Good night, Adrian. Good night, Lena. She walked out through the revolving doors into the cold October night. The black SUV was exactly where he said it would be. The driver was exactly as described, a heavy-set black man in his 50s in a dark suit who opened the back door for her without speaking and closed it again once she was inside. Miss Brooks, he said from the front. Home? Please? I know the address, and she didn't ask how. The SUV pulled away from the Ashford Grand and rolled down the long circular drive, past the valet stand, past the line of cars waiting for their keys, past the wedding guests in tuxedos smoking under the porte cochere. Lena leaned her forehead against the cool window and watched the hotel shrink in the side mirror. Her phone was buzzing in her purse. Catherine. Where are you? Catherine. Mom is losing her mind. Catherine. Lena. Mom. Lena. Honey, call me when you get home. Mom. We need to talk about that man. Mom. Lena, answer me. Derek. Who the hell was that, Derek? Lena. Derek. Answer the phone. Vanessa. Keen. OMG, girl, we have to catch up. You look amazing, by the way. Lunch this week? Lena scrolled through them with a kind of slow, detached wonder, as if she were reading someone else's messages. Then she turned the phone off. She put it face down in her lap. Calvin drove quietly. The streets of Westfield slid by. The familiar intersections, the familiar stoplights, the 7-Eleven where she bought Maya's string cheese on Sundays. She did not cry. She was not going to cry tonight. That was the strange part. She had walked into the Ashford Grand ready to cry in the parking lot, and now she was sitting in the back of a stranger's SUV on her way home with a dead phone and a fake husband, and she was not going to cry. She was thinking. She was thinking about Adrian Vance's face when she'd asked him why her. She was thinking about you looked like the truth. She was thinking about the way Harlan Whitfield had said you are a surprise, and the way Marcus Thorne had said, I'm sure we'll see each other again, and the fact that neither statement had been a compliment. She was thinking about Maya, asleep in her little twin bed in Mrs. Delacroix's spare bedroom across the hall, with her stuffed elephant under one arm and her mother's old phone on the nightstand because Maya liked to fall asleep with the screen lit. She was thinking that tomorrow at 10, a man she had met 4 hours ago was going to ring her apartment buzzer with a coffee in each hand, and she was going to have to decide whether to let him in. She was thinking that she should be afraid, and that the strangest thing of all was that she was not afraid. Not really. Not in the way she had been afraid for the last 3 years of her marriage to Derek. Not in the way she had been afraid every first of the month when rent was due. Not in the way she had been afraid walking into the wedding alone. She was thinking, for the first time in a very long time, about what she wanted. Calvin pulled the SUV up to the curb in front of her building. The brick was ugly and the stoop light was out, the way it had been out for 3 weeks because the super couldn't be bothered. He got out and opened her door. "Miss Brooks." "Thank you, Calvin. Mr. Vance asked me to wait until you got inside." "That's not—" "I'm going to anyway, ma'am." She did not argue. She climbed the stoop. She unlocked the outer door. She climbed the 2 flights to her apartment in her borrowed flats, the heels of her feet aching in a way she hadn't let herself notice all night. And at the top of the landing, she stopped, one hand on her own doorknob, and looked back down the stairwell at the narrow rectangle of the front window where, at the curb below, the black SUV sat with its parking lights on. Waiting. She turned the key. She stepped inside her apartment, her narrow, familiar, beloved, underwhelming apartment, with the water stain on the ceiling by the radiator and Maya's drawings taped to the refrigerator and the smell of Mrs. Delacroix's mac and cheese still faintly hanging in the air from across the hall. She closed the door. She leaned her back against it. She let out one long, shaking breath, the kind she had been holding since her mother had said, "My only girl," into a microphone 4 hours and a whole lifetime ago. From downstairs, she heard the Escalade pull away. From across the hall, she heard Mrs. Delacroix's television, low and mumbling through the wall. Some late-night rerun, a laugh track, the ordinary furniture of an ordinary Saturday night in an ordinary building on an ordinary street. She closed her eyes. Tomorrow at 10. Tomorrow at 10, her life was either going to shrink back down to exactly the size it had been this morning, or it was going to crack open into something she did not yet have a name for. She stood in the dark of her own hallway in a borrowed dress and did not move for a long, long time. She stood there against the door until her legs reminded her they belonged to a body that had been on its feet since 2 in the afternoon. Then she moved. She kicked off the borrowed flats and left them where they fell. She unzipped the navy dress in the bathroom and hung it, reverently, on the hook behind the door. Mrs. Delacroix had asked for it back by Monday, and Lena was not going to be the one to crumple something a 93-year-old woman had kept in garment bags since 1997. She wiped the mascara off her eyes with a drugstore makeup pad that stung when it passed the corner of her left eye. She stared at her face in the mirror for a long time. The woman staring back looked like Lena Brooks. Mostly. Something around the mouth had changed. She pulled on the ratty gray sweatpants that lived on the hook next to the dress, and the Mercy General t-shirt she'd gotten for free at the Employee Appreciation Picnic 3 summers ago, and she padded out into the kitchen in her socks. It was 10 past midnight. She ran a glass of water from the sink, drank it standing up, then ran another and carried it down the hall to Maya's room. Maya was asleep on her side, curled around the stuffed elephant with its chewed-up ear. The screen of Lena's old phone was lit on the nightstand, and Mrs. Delacroix had, as always, left the little clip-on reading light on so Maya wouldn't wake up in total dark. Lena stood in the doorway and just looked. Maya was 8. Maya had Derek's nose and Lena's mouth and Lena's mother's stubbornness and nobody's temper but her own. Maya had learned to read a month before the other kids in her class and was careful about it, like she didn't want to make anyone feel bad. Maya liked dogs, the color orange, and a show about cartoon ponies Lena had never managed to follow. Maya had, last Tuesday, handed Lena a folded paper at breakfast that read, in careful round pencil letters, "You are the best mom in the whole world," spelled it that way on purpose. Lena had left it stuck to the fridge under the magnet shaped like a strawberry. She crossed the room. She bent down. She kissed the crown of Maya's head where the hair was still damp from the shower. Maya stirred. "Mom?" "Hey, baby, go back to sleep." What time?" "Late." "Was it fun?" Lena paused with her hand still on Maya's hair. "Parts of it," she said quietly. "Parts of it were fun." "Okay. Sleep, sweetie. Love you to the moon." Back again. She closed the door halfway. She went back down the hall. She sat on the edge of the sagging brown couch in the living room and turned her phone back on. It lit up like a pinball machine. 7 missed calls from her mother, 3 from Catherine, 2 from Derek, 1 from a number she didn't recognize that had left no voicemail. 11 texts in the family group chat, escalating from "WHO was that man" to a single all-caps Lena that her mother had sent at 11:42. She sat there with the phone glowing in her lap and did not answer any of them. Instead, she opened the text thread with Mrs. Delacroix. Thank you so much for watching her tonight. She's asleep. You're a lifesaver. 3 dots immediately. Of course, honey. How did it go? Lena stared at the question. Strange, she typed. I'll tell you tomorrow. Uh-oh. Good, strange, or bad strange? I don't know yet. Mrs. Delacroix sent back a single emoji, the old lady version of a heart, yellow and pulsing, and Lena almost started crying right there on the couch for the first time all night. She didn't. She put the phone face down on the cushion. She lay back against the armrest. She closed her eyes. She did not sleep for a long time. At 3:17 in the morning, she picked up the phone and opened a search bar and typed Adrian Vance. She stared at the name in the little white field for a full minute. Then she deleted it, one letter at a time, and set the phone back down. She did not want to meet him for the first time through Google. She was going to meet him for the first time through her own front door. She fell asleep around 4. She woke up at 7:30 to the sound of Maya dragging a chair across the kitchen linoleum to get the Cheerios down from the top shelf. Baby, I'm up. Come here. I got it. I can reach it. I know you can. Come here anyway. Maya came over in her pony pajamas and let Lena hug her for longer than Maya usually allowed. Maya was 8, which was the exact age at which daughters stop tolerating sentimental hugs from their mothers, a fact Lena was trying to make peace with in real time. Mom. You're squishing me. Sorry. Go sit. She made Maya cereal. She made herself coffee with the crappy drip machine that took 4 minutes to produce something that tasted like burnt cardboard. She drank it standing up at the counter. Mom. Yeah. Are you okay? I'm great, baby. Why? You have a weird face. I have a what? A weird face, like when the landlord calls. Lena laughed. It came out cracked. That bad? Almost that bad. I'm fine, Maya, I promise. I just didn't sleep great. The wedding? Yeah. Was it pretty? It was very pretty. Was Aunt Catherine's dress white? It was very white. Did she throw the flowers? I think she did. I didn't catch them. Maya nodded solemnly, like that was the right answer. At 9:15, Lena put the cereal bowl in the sink and told Maya to go get dressed. At 9:30, Lena was still standing in front of her closet in sweatpants and the Mercy General t-shirt, staring at her clothes like the clothes had insulted her. She didn't have anything to wear to meet a fake husband. She pulled on jeans. She pulled them off. She pulled on a nicer pair of jeans and a plain black sweater and pushed the sleeves up. She ran a brush through her hair and put it up and took it down and put it up again. At 9:50, the buzzer rang. She froze. Maya yelled from the other room, "Mom, door!" I know, baby. 1 sec. She crossed to the intercom. She pressed the button. Hello? It's Adrian. She pressed the buzzer to let him up without saying anything else. She had maybe 90 seconds. She grabbed the Cheerios box off the counter and shoved it back in the cabinet, even though the cabinet was already full. She wiped a smear of milk off the table with her sleeve. She looked at herself in the hallway mirror. She looked like a woman who had slept 90 minutes, which she had. The knock when it came was quiet. 3 careful taps. She opened the door. Adrian was standing in the hallway holding 2 paper cups of coffee and a brown bakery bag. He was not wearing a suit. He was wearing dark jeans and a charcoal sweater under a wool overcoat, and his hair was a little less precise than it had been the night before, and he looked younger than she'd thought he was. 38 maybe, not 40. He looked like a man who'd slept, which annoyed her a little. Morning, he said. Morning. Is this a bad time? Is this a good time? Fair. He offered her one of the coffees. Cream, 2 sugars. You remembered. I wrote it down. She took the cup. She stepped back to let him in. He paused at the threshold, the way polite men paused in other people's homes, and waited for her to say it. Come in. He came in. He wiped his shoes deliberately on the thin welcome mat, even though it had not rained, even though there was nothing on them. And then he stepped into her apartment and took it in with the same slow, professional thoroughness he'd used on her at the wedding. She watched him do it, and she watched him not do it. He didn't let his eyes linger anywhere embarrassing. He didn't pause on the water stain. He didn't look twice at the cheap IKEA shelf with the lopsided bottom shelf. His eyes moved over the refrigerator, Maya's drawings, the strawberry magnet, the note, and softened for a half second. His eyes moved to the framed school photo of Maya on the wall and stayed there a beat longer than on anything else. "She looks like you," he said. "People say she looks like her dad. People are wrong." "Mom," Maya's voice. Maya was standing at the end of the hallway in jeans and a purple sweater, her hair in two uneven pigtails Lena had not helped with, watching the stranger in her kitchen with large, unimpressed eyes. "Hi, baby. Come here." Maya came, slowly. She stopped behind Lena's hip and put her hand quietly on the back of Lena's thigh. "Maya," Lena said, "this is Mr. Vance. He's my friend from last night." "Hello, Maya," Adrian said. He did not crouch. Lena noticed that. The men in her life, Derek, her father when she was small, had always crouched when they met kids, dropped into that exaggerated hands-on-knees pose that made children feel managed. Adrian did not crouch. He just stood where he was and inclined his head slightly, the way he had to Lena's mother, as if Maya were someone whose existence he was prepared to take seriously. "Hi," Maya said. "Is that coffee okay for your mom? She likes 2 sugars." "I know, she told me." "Okay." Maya looked up at her mother. "Mom." "What, sweetie? Can I watch a show?" "Yes. Go, but keep it low." Maya peeled off toward the living room. A second later, the TV came on at roughly the volume of a whispered confession. Maya had been trained well. Lena turned back to Adrian. "Sit," she said. They sat at the small kitchen table. It wobbled. It had always wobbled. Adrian noticed but did not comment. He set his coffee down. He set the bakery bag down between them. He did not open it. "Lena?" "Adrian." "I don't want to have this conversation inside your daughter's hearing range, even if she's watching television. Is there somewhere we can talk, or do you want me to come back in an hour?" "She's 8. She hears everything." "That's my point. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks down, Finnerty's. I can ask Mrs. Delacroix across the hall to sit with her for an hour." "Whatever is easier." She got up. She crossed the hall in her socks. Mrs. Delacroix opened the door in a housecoat with her reading glasses on the end of her nose and an old corgi named Beatrice at her feet. And when she saw Lena standing there in jeans and a stricken face, she said, without ceremony, "Is he a good one?" "Mrs. D? Honey, is he a good one? That's all I'm asking." "I don't know yet. But you're going to find out." "Yes." "Then I'll watch the girl." "Go." Lena kissed her on the cheek. Maya, in the living room, was already agreeing to spend an hour at Mrs. Delacroix's watching a baking show with Beatrice on her lap. Adrian stepped out of the apartment behind Lena, the brown bakery bag in one hand, and nodded, once, to Mrs. Delacroix across the hall. "Ma'am," said Mrs. Delacroix, and closed the door. Finnerty's was mostly empty at 10 in the morning on a Sunday, which was why Lena had picked it. There was a couple in the corner reading sections of the Westfield Courier and passing them back and forth, and the owner's teenage son was behind the counter looking miserable, and the radio was playing something acoustic and unobtrusive. They took the booth at the back, under the window. Adrian set the bakery bag down between them, and at last opened it. 2 almond croissants, a small paper boat of cut strawberries. "The strawberries are for the ride back," he said. "For Maya." "Adrian, if you're going to keep being thoughtful like that, you need to do it on purpose, so I know it's on purpose." He looked up at her. "It's on purpose." "Okay. Eat." "I had cereal." "You ate half a bowl while she ate hers. I could smell it on you. You need food." "You could." She shook her head. "You know what? Fine." She broke a piece off the croissant. She ate it. She was starving, actually, which she hadn't realized until the first bite hit her tongue. He let her eat. He drank his coffee. He didn't start yet. When she was halfway through the croissant, she set it down. "Talk." "All right. And Adrian." Don't manage me. I know what being managed feels like. Derek used to manage me. I'd rather you were rude than smooth." He nodded slowly. "Understood. Good. Go." He set down his cup. He folded his hands on the table between them. My name is Adrian James Vance. I'm 39. I was born outside Hartford. I have lived most of my adult life between New York and a country I'm not going to name to you yet. I run a holding company called Vance Reston Partners that invests in logistics, shipping, and private security. We operate in roughly 14 countries. We have an office in Westfield because Westfield is boring and boring is useful. I am not married. I have never been married. I have no children. I have one brother who died 11 years ago. My mother is alive and lives in New Hampshire. My father is alive and we do not speak. Those are the clean parts of my life. She ate a strawberry. And the unclean parts? We'll get to those. Keep going. 3 months ago, he said, I closed a deal with a consortium led by Harlan Whitfield. The deal involved the acquisition of a shipping corridor through the Gulf that had previously been controlled by a man named Viktor Asanov. Mr. Asanov is not happy that I now control that corridor. Mr. Asanov is, for lack of a better word, the reason I do not eat food I did not see prepared. Jesus, not a man to invoke at the moment. Sorry. Don't be. I don't mind. Go on. Harlan Whitfield is a legitimate businessman. He is also paranoid, and he has reason to be. He requires the people he does business with to look a certain way. Stable, married, local. Harlan does not like doing business with bachelors in their late 30s. He believes, not entirely without cause, that men who aren't tied to anything have nothing to lose, and men who have nothing to lose are dangerous partners. So you needed a wife. I needed a woman who could walk into a room at my elbow and look like she belonged there. I had a woman. Her name doesn't matter. She was a professional. She flew in from Chicago yesterday morning. At 4 p.m. yesterday afternoon, she called me to tell me that her 6-year-old son had been hit by a car in Evanston. Lena felt her stomach drop. Is he? He's alive. Broken leg. Concussion. She's in the hospital with him. She is exactly where she should be. I released her from the arrangement. I wired her the fee, and I told her to go home. I do not employ professionals who choose work over their children. That is a rule I made 11 years ago and have not broken. 11 years ago. The year my brother died. She didn't ask. He didn't offer. So you were at the wedding without a wife. I was at the wedding without anyone. I had 45 minutes to find a replacement or admit to Harlan that my life had a crack in it. I took a drink in the lounge. I intended to call my lawyer and cancel the deal. And then you walked into the lounge and sat down on the sofa and put your head in your hands and did not cry. And that made you change your mind. That made me change my mind. Because I looked like the truth. Because you looked like a woman who was used to not being rescued. She set down her coffee. Adrian, you understand that's a strange thing to find useful. I know. I'm not a thing. I know. I'm a person who has a daughter and a job and rent and a life, and you saw me at my worst for 20 minutes and decided I'd make a good fake wife. Do you hear how that sounds? Yes. Does it bother you? It bothers me more this morning than it did last night. Why? He was quiet for a long time. Because last night you were a solution, he said. This morning, you're a person whose daughter made me coffee even though she didn't know she was doing it, and whose neighbor asked me in the hallway whether I was a good one. Last night, I could afford to think of you as a solution. This morning, I can't. She didn't answer. She looked at the table. Keep talking, she said, about the rest of it. All right. He took a slow breath. I told Marcus Thorne last night that you were my wife. I told him we had married quietly about 4 months ago. I told him you have a daughter from a previous marriage. I told him you work in healthcare administration, which is technically true. I told him you are unaware of the full nature of my business, which is also technically true. Marcus is going to verify none of this because I said it, and Marcus is going to verify all of this because that's his job. Verify how? He is going to have someone check your apartment building for 2 days. He is going to have someone pull your divorce records, which are public. He is going to have someone call your workplace and ask if there is a Lena Brooks on the night shift. He is going to have someone photograph you, probably at work, probably at school pickup. None of this is illegal, and none of it will be visible to you. 2 days. 2 days. After that, if the story holds, Marcus will move on. He will still be watching for inconsistencies, but only in the passive way wealthy men watch for inconsistencies. He will not dig further. And if the story doesn't hold, then I will have to tell Harlan the truth, which will end my deal, which will cost me a great deal of money and a great deal of safety. It will not cost you anything. I will make sure of that. What do you mean by safety? I mean, Viktor Asanov is a man who pays attention to other men's weak points. A failed marriage is a weak point. A suspected lie about a marriage is a weaker one. You're saying if Harlan finds out you lied, Viktor Asanov will find out too. Yes. And that will be dangerous for you. Yes. And will it be dangerous for me? He paused. No, he said. Not directly. Not if we end things cleanly. Not if, a week from now, your neighbors and your coworkers remember a man came to your door once and never again. Cleanly? Cleanly. And if we don't end cleanly, if we do not end cleanly, if Marcus finds a hole in the story, if someone at your sister's wedding calls a reporter with a photograph, if Harlan's people get curious in a way I can't head off, then your name becomes part of a larger picture, Lena, not as a participant, as a loose thread. Men like Victor do not tolerate loose threads. She felt cold. She gripped her coffee cup for warmth. You're telling me, she said carefully, that I am possibly already in danger. I'm telling you that you're possibly on a short list somewhere, not near the top, not yet, possibly not at all. But I would rather you know. Adrian, Jesus Christ. I know. Maya. Maya is not on any list. Maya is not a part of this. I want that very clear. Whatever happens next, Maya does not become part of this. Not for 1 second. How do you guarantee that? By making decisions carefully and by making them in the open with you, not behind your back. She stared at him. Why are you telling me all this? You could have lied. You could have made me feel safer. I didn't know what I didn't know. I would have believed anything you told me over coffee. I could have. So why? Because I told you last night I owed you the truth. I meant it. And because you need me to agree to something. Yes. And because I need you to agree to something. Tell me what. He turned his coffee cup a half turn. I would like you, he said, to agree to be my wife. Publicly, legally, in every sense the world can see. For 6 months. I would like to obtain a marriage license with you in Westfield County on Tuesday. I would like to move you and Maya into a property I own 40 minutes from here, with round-the-clock security that you will not see unless you go looking for it. I would like to pay you a sum of money large enough that you will never have to work a night shift again. I would like you to attend approximately 1 event per month with me. Professional, photographed, finite. I would like you to let me be seen during that 6 months as a man who has become domestic. A man with a wife and a stepdaughter. A man with something to lose. That appearance is worth a very great deal to me, and I will pay for it accordingly. At the end of 6 months, we will file for a quiet, uncontested divorce. I will continue to pay for Maya's education through college as a condition of the divorce. I will never ask you for anything again. You will be on paper a woman who married a wealthy man and chose, in the end, not to stay. That is a version of yourself that will make the rest of your life considerably easier than the version you were on Saturday morning. She couldn't speak. He went on quietly. I have a document in my car with all of this written down. I have a lawyer who is prepared to walk you through every clause with me not in the room. I will not ask you to sign today. I will not ask you to sign this week. I will not ask you to sign anything you have not read twice. 6 months. 6 months. And I move. You move to a house 40 minutes from here. Maya keeps her school. I provide transportation for her. Your commute to Mercy disappears because you stop working at Mercy. I don't want to stop working. Then don't. Change what you do. Go back to school. Start something. I will not dictate that. I am buying your name on paper, Lena, not your days. My name on paper. Yes. And the private part. The personal part. He looked at her very evenly. There is no personal part in the agreement. What do you mean? I mean there is nothing in the document that obligates you to touch me or be touched by me. Nothing that obligates you to share a bedroom. Nothing that obligates you to share your body in any form whatsoever. That is not what I am buying. If you sign the document, you are not selling that. That is not a thing I purchase. Adrian. Yes. Is that Is that a line you've had to say before? Yes. To a lawyer, not to a woman. Why? Because a lawyer once asked me whether I wanted that clause in my template. I said yes. It has been in my templates ever since. I am not a man who purchases bodies, Lena. You're a man who purchases the appearance of one. Yes, and I know how that sounds. It sounds awful. Yes. It also sounds like the best offer I have ever received in my life, and that sounds worse. He did not answer. She watched him not answer. His hand tightened very slightly around the coffee cup, and then he released it. Adrian, she said. I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer it like a person and not like a man with a lawyer in his pocket. All right. Last night on the dance floor, when I laid my cheek on your jacket. Yes. Did you feel anything? He was quiet for a long time. Yes, he said. What did you feel? I felt, he said slowly, that I had been lonely for longer than I had noticed. She stared at him. Okay, she said. Her voice had dropped almost to a whisper. Okay. That does not obligate you to anything, Lena. I want that clear. That is a feeling I had. That is not a term of the agreement. If you sign the document, you are signing the document. If, at some point during the 6 months, either of us feels differently, then we have a different conversation about a different arrangement, and we have it sober and in a well-lit room, and we write down what we decide. But nothing I felt last night obligates you to feel anything in return. Do you understand that? Yes. Good. She picked up her coffee. She put it down without drinking. She picked up the almond croissant. She put it down. Adrian. Yes. I need to think. Of course. I need to think alone. In my kitchen. Without you across the table. I'll go. Not yet. Answer one more thing. Yes. If I say no, today, right now, what happens to you? He considered that. I lose a deal, he said. I lose quite a lot of money. I spend the next 6 months repairing a reputation I would have preferred not to have damaged. I continue doing my job. I am not unsafe. I am inconvenienced at a scale that will not be visible to you. And if you say yes, I call my lawyer tonight. Tuesday we get a license. Wednesday we file paperwork that will look to anyone checking like it was filed 4 months ago. By Friday there is a house with your name on the lease and a car in the driveway and a security firm that reports to me and not to anyone else. By next Sunday, Harlan Whitfield will have seen 3 separate proofs that you are my wife, and he will stop looking. And Maya. Maya has her own room with whatever she wants in it. Maya has a driver for school. Maya has a life that is bigger than she currently has access to, and she does not have to say goodbye to anything. Maya is not told the marriage is not real. Maya is told her mother got married, and 6 months from now Maya is told her mother got divorced, and both of those are things children survive. I do not lie to children. I will not lie to her, but I will not be the one to tell her what this is. That decision belongs to you. Lena's eyes were wet. She didn't notice. Adrian. I need you to understand something. All right. I was the invisible woman at that wedding, the one behind the pillar, the one everyone forgot to invite a second time. And if I do this, if I sign your document and I stand next to you at Harlan Whitfield's events and I let the world think I married you, I am not the invisible woman anymore. I am a woman with a face people will remember. I am a woman my mother will call every week now. I am a woman Vanessa Keene will try to take to lunch. I am a woman my ex-husband will ask for less child support from because he thinks I don't need it anymore. And 6 months from now, when you divorce me quietly, I am a woman who failed at being visible. And that is a different kind of invisible than the one I was on Saturday. Yes. I'm not sure which kind is worse. Neither am I. That's the most honest thing you've said to me. I know. She sat there. She looked out the window of Finnerty's at Main Street, where a man in a Patriots jacket was walking a large brown dog with 3 legs, and the dog was wagging its tail so hard its whole body was bending sideways, and the man was laughing, and it was the most ordinary Sunday morning in the world, and she thought, absurdly, clearly, that was me yesterday. That man. That exact kind of ordinary. I was that woman yesterday. Adrian. Yes. I'm going to say two things, and then I'm going to ask you to leave the cafe, and I'm going to sit here and finish my coffee by myself. All right? The first thing is that I don't know yet what I'm going to do. Okay. The second thing is that if I do decide to say yes, I have conditions. I don't know all of them yet, but I know some of them, and I need you to hear them now, so you can decide whether to have your lawyer call mine or whether to go find another woman. I'm listening. I pick Maya's school. I pick her doctor. I pick what we eat. I pick what room I sleep in, and if I want that room to have a lock you do not have the key to, it has a lock you do not have the key to. You never use the word my wife to me in private. In public, fine. In private, I am Lena. I am not an accessory of your life when the cameras are off. I work if I want to work. If I stop working, it is because I chose to stop. You do not get to buy my choosing. If Maya needs me at 3 in the morning, I go to her, and you do not follow. If at any point in the 6 months Maya asks me what this is, I get to tell her the truth in my own words and at my own pace. You do not get to stop me. And if at any point in the 6 months I decide I can't do this anymore, we unwind it, quietly, cleanly, without punishing me for changing my mind. Are those things you can live with, Adrian Vance? He did not hesitate. Yes, all of them. All of them. Even the part where I can leave. Especially that part. Why especially? Because if you cannot leave, then I am not asking you for anything. I am taking it, and I am not willing to be that man. She looked at him for a long time. Okay, she said, quietly. Okay? Okay means I heard you. Okay doesn't mean yes. Understood. Go home, Adrian. He stood. He did not reach across the table. He did not touch her hand. He left a $50 on the table for a $12 check, and when she started to push it back, he said evenly, "Please, let me pay for the coffee." She let him. He left. The little bell on the door of Finnerty's rang. She watched him through the window as he walked down Main Street, hands in the pockets of his overcoat, past the three-legged dog and its laughing owner, and he did not look back, which she was grateful for, because she did not know what her face was doing. She sat in the booth for another 40 minutes. She drank her coffee. She ate the croissant. She ate the second croissant. She ate 3 of the strawberries and saved the rest in the little paper boat for Maya. She thought about her mother saying "my only girl" into a microphone. She thought about Mrs. Delacroix asking, "Is he a good one?" with her reading glasses on the end of her nose. She thought about Adrian's hand at her back on the dance floor, and the word lonely, and the way his voice had sounded when he said it. She thought about Maya's school, and Maya's doctor, and Maya's small, fierce, freckled face asking her across the kitchen table, "Are you okay, Mom? You have a weird face." She thought about 6 months. She paid. She walked home. She climbed her 2 flights of stairs in the brown coat with the pilling cuffs, and at the top of the landing she stopped, one hand on her own doorknob, and stood there for a long moment. Then she opened the door. Mrs. Delacroix was sitting at Lena's kitchen table with Beatrice asleep under her feet and a cup of Lena's bad drip coffee in her hands. Maya was on the living room floor, cross-legged, watching a woman on TV pipe chocolate onto something that was supposed to look like a swan. Mrs. Delacroix looked up. "Well?" Lena set the little boat of strawberries down on the counter. "Mrs. D," she said, "can I ask you something?" "You can ask me anything, honey." If a man told you a thing that sounded completely insane, and he told it to you like he was warning you instead of selling it to you, would you be more inclined to believe him or less? Mrs. Delacroix considered that. She looked at Maya, who was not listening. She looked back at Lena. "More," she said. "Salesmen don't warn you about their product. They talk you into it." "Yeah." "Honey, is this a thing where I should be worried for you?" "I don't know yet." "Is this a thing where I should be worried for her?" They both looked at Maya. Maya, unconcerned, was narrating the baking show quietly to the dog. "No," Lena said. "If it were a thing where you should be worried for her, I wouldn't do it." "Okay. That's all I know right now." "Okay, honey. Thank you." "For what?" "For not telling me what to do." Mrs. Delacroix laughed. She stood, slowly, the way 93-year-old women stood. She patted Beatrice on the rump. She crossed the kitchen and patted Lena on the cheek with a papery hand. "Honey," she said, You haven't needed me to tell you what to do since your daddy's funeral. You just needed someone to not leave." She whistled for the dog. She went home. Lena stood in her kitchen with her hand still on the doorknob, and she listened to Maya giggle at something on the television, and she listened to her upstairs neighbor start a vacuum, and she listened to the radiator clank the way it did every 10 minutes in October, and she closed her eyes. She did not make the decision yet. She did not call anyone. She did not text Adrian. But when she opened her eyes, she walked down the hallway to Maya's room, and she sat on the edge of Maya's bed, and she looked around the room. The twin mattress, the pony sheets, the crack in the plaster Maya had decorated with butterfly stickers, and she thought very quietly, "You deserve a room that doesn't have a crack in it, baby. You deserve a room with a lock on the door and a window that faces a yard. You deserve a mom who doesn't work nights. You deserve a mom who is not invisible." And then she went to the kitchen, and she picked up her phone, and she opened the thread with the unknown number that had called her at 11 the night before and left no voicemail, and she stared at it for a long time. She didn't know whose it was. She had a guess. She typed, very slowly, with her thumb, "Tell your lawyer to call mine. I don't have a lawyer yet. I'll get one tomorrow morning." She stared at the message. She did not hit send. Not yet. She set the phone face down on the counter. She walked over to the couch. She sat down next to Maya on the floor and pulled her daughter into her lap. And Maya, without looking away from the swan made out of chocolate, leaned her whole weight against Lena's chest and said, around a yawn, "Mom, can we have pancakes for dinner?" And Lena, with her face in her daughter's hair and her heart doing something it had not done in 4 years, said, "Yeah, baby, we can have pancakes for dinner." And on the counter, face down, the phone stayed unsent. For now, the phone stayed face down on the counter until almost 9 that night. Lena made the pancakes. She burned the first one because she had been trying to flip it one-handed while Maya narrated an argument between 2 cartoon characters from the living room. The second one came out better. By the 5th, she had her rhythm back. She and Maya ate them standing at the kitchen counter out of the same pan, pulling them apart with their fingers, the way they used to do when Maya was small enough to stand on a chair to reach the stove. At 7:30, she ran Maya a bath. At 8, she read to her, a chapter of a book about a girl and a talking horse, until Maya's eyelids started to flag. At 8:20, she kissed her on the forehead, turned off the overhead light, and left the little clip-on reading lamp on at its dimmest setting, because Maya still didn't like total dark. At 8:40, she put a load of laundry in. At 8:50, she stood in the kitchen with her hand on the laundry hamper and realized she had been folding the same towel for 4 minutes. At 8:53, she picked up the phone. The typed message was still there, still unsent. "Tell your lawyer to call mine." "I don't have a lawyer yet. I'll get one tomorrow morning." She deleted it. She stared at the blank text field for a long, long time. Then she typed something else. "This is Lena. If this is Adrian's number, I need to see you one more time before I decide. Not tomorrow, not in my apartment. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can leave if I want to." She hit send before she could talk herself out of it. The response came back in less than 30 seconds. "It's Adrian. Whatever you want, name it." She typed back, "There's a diner on Route 9 called Hal's. It's always empty after 9. Meet me there in an hour." She put the phone back down. Her hands were shaking. She washed them in the kitchen sink because she didn't know what else to do with them. She changed her clothes. Not to look nice, just to stop looking like a woman who had been making pancakes all night. Dark jeans, a long-sleeved Henley. She pulled her hair back. She did not put on mascara because she was afraid of what her face would do at Hal's, and she did not want evidence. She crossed the hall. She knocked quietly. Mrs. Delacroix opened the door in her housecoat with a book under her arm and a look in her eyes that said she had been waiting all evening for exactly this knock. "An hour," Lena said. "Maybe 2. Go." "She's already asleep. If she wakes up, I'll tell her you ran to the store. Go, honey." "Mrs. D?" "Lena, go." She went. Hal's was where it had always been. A squat cinder block building on the northbound side of Route 9 with a neon sign that buzzed, and the letter A flickering out every 3rd second. Lena had been coming here since she was 19. It was where her father had taken her for pancakes after her mother had grounded her for missing curfew. It was where she had sat, 7 years later, with Derek across from her, trying to decide how to tell him she was pregnant. It was where she had come, alone, At 4 in the morning, the night she filed for divorce. It was a good place for hard conversations. The coffee was terrible, and the booths were patched with duct tape, and nobody from Westfield proper ever came here. A black Range Rover she didn't recognize was already in the lot when she pulled in. She parked her 10-year-old Corolla 3 spaces away from it, on purpose, because she wanted the walking room. He was in the last booth at the back, the one under the cracked framed photograph of a fishing boat that had been there since Lena was in high school. He had a coffee in front of him. The cup was full. He had not drunk any of it. He stood up when she walked in. She liked that he stood up. She had not realized, until she watched him do it, how long it had been since a man in her life had stood up when she entered a room. "You came." "I said I would." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. I'm not sure why I'm here." "That's all right." She slid into the booth across from him. She took off her coat. She kept her keys in her hand. He noticed. He did not comment. The waitress came, a tired woman with a gray braid and a name tag that read Doris, and Lena ordered decaf because she did not need to be any more awake than she already was. "Nothing else?" Doris said. "Maybe a piece of pie in a minute." "Apple." "Pecan." "You got it." Doris left them. Adrian watched her go. He turned back to Lena. "Why here?" he said. "Because it's mine." "Fair." "And because I wanted to see if you'd come to it." "And?" "You came." He almost smiled. "Adrian." "Yes." "I've thought about it." "All right." "I've thought about it for 11 hours straight, which is probably not long enough to decide a thing like this, but I don't have more hours than that. You said Tuesday." "I said Tuesday. I can give you Wednesday." "Don't. If I'm going to do it, I'd rather not stretch the waiting." "Fair." "I have questions." "Ask them." Doris set a cup of decaf in front of Lena. Lena waited until she walked away. "The house," Lena said. "The house." "Where is it?" "Do you know Ridgefield?" "Yes." "Edge of Ridgefield, 40 minutes up, 7. It's a gray farmhouse on 3 acres. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. A long driveway with a gate you can't see from the road. A previous owner put in a pool house. The pool's been emptied for winter. The nearest neighbor is half a mile away." "Who owns it now?" "A holding company. One of mine. It's been empty for 14 months. "Why empty for 14 months? "Because I buy houses I don't live in. It's one of the things wealthy men do that doesn't make sense to anyone else. I own 7 houses. I live in none of them. They're parked assets." "That's obscene." "I know." "Okay." "Okay." "Keep going. I'm just saying it's obscene out loud, so you know I know." He nodded, slowly. "The house has a security system, motion sensors on the property line, cameras I can show you or not show you. Your preference. A car in the garage I'm putting in your name, a driver who will live in the apartment over the pool house and drive Maya to school and back. His name is Calvin. You met him last night." "The SUV." "Yes." "He's trustworthy." "He's worked for me for 9 years. He has a son of his own. I trust him with my life, and I trust him with yours." "Does he know who I am?" "He knows what you are about to agree to." "Yes." "Does he think I'm crazy for agreeing to it?" "He thinks you are a woman who has a daughter. He respects that." "Lena." "Yes." "You're asking me about the house and the driver. You're not asking me about the money." "I know." "Why?" "Because the money isn't the hard part." He nodded slowly. "What's the hard part?" She looked down at her coffee. She stirred it with the little metal spoon even though she had not put anything in it. "The hard part is that I'm going to wake up every morning for 6 months in a house that isn't mine, next to a man who isn't mine, and I'm going to have to explain that to my 8-year-old, and she is going to know. Maybe not the truth, but she is going to know that something is off. Kids are... Adrian, you don't know kids, but kids are. They know. They can't articulate it, but they know. Maya's going to look at you over breakfast, and she is going to ask me, at some point, why you don't kiss me the way her friends' dads kiss her friends' moms, and I'm going to have an answer." Barkit. He was quiet. "What do you want the answer to be?" "I don't know yet." "Okay. That's one of the hard parts. There are others. My mother. The hard part with my mother is that she's going to believe this. She's going to believe it fully and completely, and it's going to change how she looks at me. and I am going to have to decide whether I let her. Because the version of my mother who looks at me like I'm worth something is a version I have wanted for 34 years, Adrian. And if I get her for 6 months and then lose her again, I don't know if I survive that twice. Lena, I'm not done. Go on. My sister. The hard part with my sister is that she's going to hate me. She's going to hate me because on her wedding day, I stepped into a bigger spotlight than hers, and she's never going to forgive me for it. And I didn't even do it on purpose. And I don't know how to explain to her that I did it because her mother-in-law's father-in-law is a kingmaker, and I didn't know that when I walked into the ballroom. Catherine is going to think I did this to her. She is going to think I planned it. She is going to think I've always been waiting for her to be happy so I could take it away from her. And she would be wrong, but her being wrong doesn't mean she won't believe it. Sign C. All right. Derek. The hard part with Derek is that he is going to want something. I don't know what yet. He's going to want to get back into my life somehow. Not because he misses me, because I have become interesting. Derek has never been able to stand being in a room where something interesting is happening without him. He's going to try to be part of this, and I am going to have to not let him. And I don't know if I have that strength. I can help with Derek. No. No? Adrian, I need to be the one who handles Derek. If you handle Derek, I am a woman whose rich husband handles her ex, and I am not that woman. He looked at her for a long time, then he nodded. Okay. The last hard part. Yes. The last hard part is you. Me. You. Go on. She took a breath. The last hard part is that you said last night you felt something when I leaned on your jacket, and you said it was that you were lonely. And that is the most honest and also the most dangerous thing anyone has said to me in 4 years, Adrian, because I am lonely too. I've been lonely for a very long time, and if I move into your house and I sit at your table and I put on your name, I'm going to be lonely in a room with you. And lonely people in rooms with each other do things they did not plan to do. And I do not know what I'm going to do. And I don't think you know either. He didn't answer right away. Doris brought the pecan pie. She set it down between them with 2 forks because she'd been working at Hal's long enough to know that a piece of pie was a thing that got shared whether or not the customer said so. Anything else? We're good, thanks. Doris drifted back to the counter. Adrian picked up one of the forks. He didn't eat. He turned it slowly in his fingers. His knuckles were, Lena noticed for the first time, scarred in a faint, old way. The kind of scars that came from hitting something hard a long time ago and never quite healing flat. You're right, he said. I don't know either. That's a terrible answer. It's the true one. Adrian. I'm not asking you to promise me nothing will happen. I'm asking you to promise me that if something does happen, you will not lie to me about what it means. That I can promise. Say it. I promise you, Lena, that if something happens between us during these 6 months, anything at all, I will not lie to you about what it means, even if what it means is nothing, even if what it means is more than nothing. I will say it, and I will say it clearly, and I will not let you spend a night wondering. Okay. Okay. Okay means I heard you. Right. She picked up the other fork. She took a bite of the pie. It was too sweet. The way pie at Hal's had always been too sweet, because Hal's used corn syrup and did not apologize for it. Tell me about your brother. She said it quietly. She had not planned to. It came out because the pie was in her mouth and the diner was empty and her defenses had started to shift. Adrian set the fork down. Michael. Michael. He was quiet for a beat. Michael was 26. He worked for me. Not at Vance Reston. That came later. At a smaller company, a logistics outfit I was trying to get off the ground. He ran our Boston office. He was good at it. He was very good at it, actually, better than I was. He was the one people liked. What happened? He made a decision in the 3rd week of October, 11 years ago, to drive home in weather he should have waited out. He hit black ice on I-91 outside Springfield. The truck that hit him was a semi. He died before the ambulance got there. Oh. I was on the phone with him when it happened. Adrian. He called me from the car because he was bored. We were talking about nothing. The Celtics, a girl he was going to ask out. He said, the last thing he said was, oh, just that. Oh. And then the line was quiet for about 10 seconds. And then somebody picked up his phone and said, "Sir, there has been an accident, and I knew." "I'm sorry." "Don't be." "I'm sorry anyway." He looked at her.
The reason I tell you this, he said, is because the rule I made about not employing people who choose work over their children. I made that rule on the drive to Springfield. I drove 5 hours that night in the rain. I had a lot of time to think. I decided on that drive that I was not going to be a man who asked people to put their work ahead of the people they loved. Because Michael was coming home to me that night because I had called him about a contract I didn't even need him for. I needed him for Sunday. He was driving home on Wednesday because I told him I needed him Wednesday. I didn't. I just wanted him closer. I wanted him where I could see him. I did not tell him that. I lied to him about the contract because I did not know how to say I missed my little brother. And he got in a truck and he died.
Adrian, I have not told anyone that story in 10 years. Why tell me now? Because you asked me a fair question about whether I know what I'm buying, and I wanted you to know that the reason I do not touch what I'm not willing to pay for is that I already spent one person I loved on something I did not mean. I'm not going to do that again. Not with you, not with Maya, not for 6 months, and not for 6 days. She put her fork down. She did not say anything. He waited. After a long time, she said, "Okay. I'm going to do it." He did not move. "Lena, I'm going to do it, Adrian. I'm going to sign your paperwork. I'm going to marry you on Tuesday. I'm going to move to Ridgefield. I'm going to stand next to you at Harlan Whitfield's events. I'm going to do the 6 months. You're sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." "Why?" "Because I have been sure of a lot of things that were wrong and not sure of a lot of things that were right. And somewhere around the 3rd hour of thinking about it, I realized I could not remember the last time I did a thing because I wanted to. Every decision I've made for 8 years, I made because someone else was going to be disappointed if I didn't. I got married because Derek's mother cried on the phone when I told her we weren't ready. I had Maya because Derek said it was time. I took the night shift at Mercy because my mother said day shift people were snobs. I stayed in Westfield because Catherine said she needed me nearby. I went to Catherine's wedding because my mother said not going would hurt her more than going would hurt me. I have not, in 8 years, made a single decision because I wanted to. And today, I want to do this. I don't know if I want it for the right reasons. I don't know if I'll still want it in a month. But I want it now. And I'm going to trust that for once. Because if I don't trust wanting something now, I will never trust it. He did not speak for a long moment. Then he reached across the table, slowly. He did not take her hand. He laid his palm, open, next to her coffee cup. An offer, not a grab. She looked at it. She slid her hand into his, just for a second, just long enough to let him know she had heard him. Then she took it back. "Adrian?" "Yes. Don't propose to me in this diner. Don't make this the moment. I'm going to remember tonight for the rest of my life, and I do not want to remember it as the night a man proposed to me at Hal's because he had to." "I wasn't going to." "Good." "I brought a pen." She laughed. A startled, wet sound. "You brought a pen." "I brought a lot of things. The paperwork is in the car. I'm not going to make you sign it here. I'll have my lawyer's office courier it to you tomorrow morning. You'll have a lawyer of your own by Monday afternoon. I'll pay for him. You'll pick him. I don't want to know his name." "Adrian." "Yes." "Thank you." "For what?" "For making this feel like a decision I made, even if you built the road I drove down. That's the job, Lena." "No, it's not." "No," he said, quietly. "It's not." They sat in the booth for another hour. He did not push her to leave. She did not push him either. They talked about nothing. She asked him what it was like to have 7 houses he didn't live in, and he told her about a house in Maine he kept meaning to sell because the roof leaked every spring. And she asked him if he had a dog, and he said no, he was gone too much. And she asked him if he liked dogs, and he said he used to have a terrier when he was 12 named Bronson. And she laughed because that was an absurd name for a dog. And he said he had picked it at 12 because he thought it sounded tough. And she said 12-year-old Adrian sounded like a mess. and he agreed. It was the first time all night he had told her something about himself that was not useful. At 11:10, she looked at her watch and said she had to go. He walked her to the Corolla. The air outside was cold in the way October air in Connecticut was always cold at night, dry and clean, and smelling faintly of leaves. She put her hand on the door handle and turned back to him. Adrian. Yes. Tomorrow morning, before the paperwork. I want to tell Maya. What will you tell her?
I'll tell her I'm going to marry you. I won't tell her why. All right. If she asks why, then tell her whatever feels right. I trust you. You don't even know me. I've known you for 31 hours, Lena. You've told me more in that time than most people I pay to tell me things tell me in a year. I know you. That's absurd. It is. She almost laughed. She didn't. Good night, Adrian. Good night, Lena.
He did not kiss her. He did not try. He watched her get in the car. He watched her back out of the space. He stood in the parking lot of Hal's with his hands in the pockets of his overcoat until her headlights were out on Route 9 and out of sight. The next 3 weeks went fast and slow at the same time. She got a lawyer, a woman named Priya Rao, who had been recommended by one of Mrs. Delacroix's nieces, and who read the agreement cover to cover in Lena's kitchen with a red pen and raised her eyebrows exactly once at the number on the third page. Lena. I know. Do you know? I know. Sign it. Really? Sign it today. That fast. Lena, this is a fair document. It is a generous document. It has more protections for you than most prenuptial agreements I have ever seen. Whatever this man's other qualities, his lawyer is extremely good, and he has instructed her to err on your side on every ambiguous clause. I have read 1,000 of these. I have never read one like this. Sign it. She signed it on Tuesday at 4:45 p.m. in a small office in Greenwich she had never been to before. She and Adrian got a marriage license at the county clerk's office that same afternoon. The clerk was a woman in her 50s who had seen enough strange marriages not to ask questions. She stamped their papers and wished them congratulations in a voice that suggested she said the word 40 times a day. The marriage itself was small. It happened on Thursday in a judge's chambers, not a church, with 2 witnesses Adrian had arranged and neither Lena's mother nor her sister present because neither of them knew yet. Lena wore a navy dress Adrian's assistant had delivered to her apartment that morning. Not the navy dress from the wedding. A new one. Something simple and soft and knee-length. Lena had stared at it for 20 minutes before she put it on. Adrian wore a dark gray suit, no tie. She was grateful. A tie would have made it look like he was trying. The judge said what he said. They said what they were supposed to say. Adrian slid a plain gold band onto her finger, and a ring he had given her to keep in her pocket until that morning, a small, unshowy solitaire on a thin platinum band, was already there. Lena had looked at the ring and thought this cost the price of a used Honda and had put it in her pocket anyway. When it came time to kiss, Adrian paused. His eyes asked her. Hers said cheek. He kissed her on the cheek. The judge raised his eyebrows. He did not comment. He signed their papers and handed over a folder of copies and told them to have a nice day. They walked out into the hallway. Adrian's lawyer was waiting there with a smile that was entirely professional. Behind her, Calvin was waiting with the SUV. Do you want to go to lunch? Adrian asked. We don't have to. Yes. But somewhere small, somewhere with pancakes. Done. She did not take his hand on the way out. He did not ask her to. Calvin, in the driver's seat, did not look in the rear view. They moved to Ridgefield on Saturday. The movers came at 9 in the morning. Lena had packed for 3 days. She had packed methodically, the way a woman packs when she does not quite believe she will unpack on the other end. Maya's books, Maya's clothes, the strawberry magnet and the note that read best mom in the whole world, the pony sheets, the stuffed elephant, her own clothes, which fit in 2 suitcases, a box of kitchen things she did not technically need because the house in Ridgefield had a kitchen, but which she was taking anyway because they were hers. The chipped mug her father had bought her in Portland the summer she turned 16, the framed photograph of her grandmother on the piano bench, 3 cookbooks, the drip coffee maker. She had taken the drip coffee maker. Mom! Yeah, baby. Is the new house haunted? No, sweetie, why? It's been empty for a long time.
How do you know that? I heard you tell Mrs. D. You're not supposed to listen to grown-up conversations. I was eating cereal, Mom. It was right there. The house isn't haunted, I promise. Promise with your hand. Lena put her hand on her heart.
Okay. Maya went back to packing her markers. Mrs. Delacroix came to see them off. She stood on the sidewalk with Beatrice at her feet, and she did not cry, because Mrs. Delacroix did not cry. But she held Lena's face in both her papery hands, and she said very quietly into Lena's ear, "Honey, if it goes bad, you come back to me. No questions. I will have the spare key waiting." Mrs. D. No questions, Lena. I mean it. No questions. Okay. Now, give me that girl so I can kiss her goodbye. Maya got kisses. Beatrice got patted. Lena hugged Mrs. Delacroix for a long time. Then she got in the SUV with Maya, and Calvin closed the door, and they drove north on Route 7 toward a farmhouse Lena had seen once in photographs. The house was grayer than the pictures had shown. Weathered cedar shingles, black shutters, a wraparound porch with a hanging swing on one end, maple trees still half in leaf lining the drive. A gate that opened, as promised, when Calvin's transponder got within 20 feet of it. Maya pressed her nose to the window. "Mom." "Yeah, baby." "There's a porch." "I know." "There's a swing. I see it." "There's a—" She inhaled sharply. "Is that a tire swing?" It was a tire swing. Adrian had put it up that week, Lena realized. It had not been in any of the pictures. Maya was out of the car before Calvin had fully stopped. Lena got out more slowly. Adrian was standing on the porch, coat over one arm, watching Maya run across the yard toward the tire swing with the careful, observational stillness she was starting to recognize as his default mode for things he had not done before. "Mom!" Maya yelled. "Mom, come on!" "1 second, baby." She climbed the porch steps. Adrian didn't move. "Hi." "Hi. You put up a swing." "I did." "Adrian?" "Do not buy her things without telling me." "It's not a thing. It's a swing. It's a tire on a rope." "I know what it is." "Lena." "Adrian, listen to me. She is 8. She has been poor her whole life. If you buy her things, she is going to get used to things. And 6 months from now, I know. She is going to lose all of them. I know. So no more surprises. For her. Please." He looked out across the yard at Maya, who was attempting to climb into the tire swing head first and getting stuck halfway. "Understood. Thank you. It's a fair ask. I should probably save her." "You should probably save her." She went down the steps. She rescued her daughter, who was giggling too hard to stand up, and she spun Maya around once in the air, the old trick, one leg out, the one Maya had stopped letting her do in public about 6 months ago, and Maya shrieked the way children shriek when a parent has done something exactly right. Lena set her down. Maya ran off to investigate a pile of stones at the base of a maple tree. Lena turned back to the porch. Adrian was still standing there. He was watching them with a face she had not seen on him before. It was not pity. It was not hunger. It was not calculation. It was something quieter, something almost bewildered. The expression of a man who had spent a lot of years inside a particular version of his own life and had just glimpsed, through a window, a room he had not known the house contained. She walked back up the steps. "Don't," she said softly. "Don't what?" "Don't look at us like that." "Like what?" "Like we're a thing you could have had if you'd been paying attention." He didn't answer. She didn't push. She walked past him into the house. The first week was strange. The second week was less strange. By the end of the third week, a rhythm had begun to make itself out of the air. Lena unpacked. Maya picked her own room, the one at the back of the house with the dormer window over the yard, and decorated it with the pony sheets and the butterfly stickers she had peeled, with Lena's permission, off the wall of her old bedroom. Lena took a bedroom on the other side of the upstairs hall, the one with the lock Priya had insisted on, and Adrian had not argued about. Adrian took the small study off the kitchen, which had a daybed in it, and he slept there on the 3 nights a week he was at the house at all. That was the part that had surprised her. He was not at the house often. "I travel," he'd said, the first Monday. I will be here 1 to 3 nights a week, depending on the month. When I'm here, I will have dinner with you and Maya if you want me to, or I will stay in the study if you don't. I will be at events with you when the events are scheduled. The rest of the time, I will be in New York or Boston or abroad. This is not going to feel like a marriage, Lena. Not to you, I'm telling you that up front. She had nodded. She had been relieved. She had also been, unexpectedly and annoyingly, a little disappointed. But when he was there, he was there. He came home on a Wednesday in the second week, and Maya had a fever. Lena was in the kitchen with a thermometer in her hand and a cold washcloth on Maya's forehead, trying to decide whether to call the pediatrician. And Adrian walked in, set down his briefcase, took off his overcoat, walked across the kitchen without asking anything, and put his palm very gently on the crown of Maya's head. He said hello to Maya. He did not kiss her. He just put his hand on her head for 2 seconds. Then he took it off. 100.2, he said. 100.4. Close enough? Have you given her anything? Motrin? An hour ago. Water? She's had about 4 ounces. Okay, if it goes over 103, call the pediatrician. If it doesn't, it'll break overnight. I'll make her something to eat. She doesn't want to eat. She'll want toast. He made toast. Maya ate 2 pieces. Lena went to bed at midnight with Maya asleep in her own bed finally, and when she came downstairs at 2 in the morning to refill her water glass, the study light was on. Adrian was at the desk, working on his laptop. He heard her on the stairs. He looked up. He saw her with the water glass. She okay? Sleeping. Good. You're still up. I'm up until 2 most nights. Don't worry about it. I wasn't. He smiled, barely. Lena. Go back to bed. I will. She did. In the dark of the hall, she walked past the study door, and she paused, because she had the absurd impulse to say thank you for the toast, and she knew if she said it, she would say something else after it, and she was not going to say something else. Not tonight. She went to bed. Saturday of the 3rd week, Harlan Whitfield called Adrian and invited them both to dinner at his home in Greenwich. Not everyone, Adrian said. Small, 8 people, his wife, his son's wife. Brandon. Yes. And Catherine. Yes. Lena sat down on the kitchen stool. Adrian. Lena. I haven't spoken to my sister since the wedding. I know. 3 weeks. I know. She has texted me 17 times. I have answered none of them. What do you want to do? I don't know. You don't have to go. I can tell Harlan you have the flu. He'll know I'm lying. He'll suspect you're lying. He won't know. He'll know. Adrian looked at her for a long time. Do you want to go? She thought about it. She thought about her sister Catherine walking into the Whitfield house in Greenwich and looking across a dining room table at Lena and Lena's new husband. She thought about the recalculation that would happen in her little sister's eyes. She thought about her own willingness to be, for one night, the thing her sister had always been. Yes, she said. I want to go. All right? I need a dress. There's a closet upstairs. Adrian, the closet's not from me. It's from a stylist I hired before you moved in. Everything in it is yours regardless of what happens. Pick something. I don't know how to pick something. Then ask the stylist. She's paid to help you. Lena. You're allowed to wear a nice dress. She looked at him. Okay. The dinner was on Friday. Calvin drove. Lena wore a dark green dress she had picked after 40 minutes of standing in the closet with the stylist, a young woman named Inez who had laughed, not unkindly, when Lena asked her how expensive the shoes she was about to put on were. Does it change your answer if I tell you? It changes my answer. Then don't tell me. Smart. The Whitfield house in Greenwich was exactly as Lena had pictured it, down to the circular gravel drive and the portico and the uniformed man at the door. Inside there was a fire in every fireplace and something classical playing from speakers she could not see. A woman in black offered them drinks. Adrian took a whiskey. Lena took a sparkling water with lime. Are you nervous? Yes. Don't be. You already impressed him. I sat in his library in a 2-season-old dress and told him I worked in billing. That's how you impressed him. Harlan Whitfield appeared at the top of the stairs and came down with his arms open. He kissed Lena on one cheek in the European way, patted Adrian on the shoulder, and welcomed them both into the drawing room, where a woman Lena assumed to be his wife, a tall, silver-blonde woman in cashmere, was standing with a glass of wine, and behind her on the sofa, Catherine and Brandon. Catherine was wearing a cream dress, a glass of red wine in her hand, and she saw Lena in the doorway, and her face did three things in very fast succession. Surprise, hurt, something harder and brighter that Lena could not quite name. "Lena," Catherine said. "Catherine, you didn't tell me." "No. You didn't tell anyone." "I told the people I needed to tell, Catherine. Not Mom." "Not yet." Catherine's eyes flicked to Adrian, flicked back. "Is it real?" The question came out quick and sharp, under the volume of the rest of the room. Brandon had stood to greet Adrian. Harlan was pouring his wife another glass. Nobody was listening. Lena looked her sister in the face. "Catherine," she said, quietly. "I'm here. He's here. I moved. Maya moved. The paperwork is filed. I don't know what you mean by real." "You know what I mean." "Do I?" "Lena." "Catherine, I love you. Please don't do this here." Catherine's mouth tightened. She looked like she wanted to say something else. She didn't. Brandon crossed the room and stood next to his wife and put his hand on the small of her back, gently, the way a husband did with a wife he had learned. Catherine closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, her face was not composed, but contained. "Lena," Brandon said. "Welcome, Adrian. Good to see you again." "Brandon." And dinner began. Lena would remember almost nothing about the food. She would remember a roast of some kind, and a soup with a swirl of something green in it, and a dessert that was too pretty to eat. What she would remember instead was the conversation. The careful, candlelit, entirely civilized conversation in which Harlan Whitfield, between the soup and the main course, told Adrian casually that Marcus Thorne would be stopping by after dinner for a drink. "He won't stay long," Harlan said. "He's in from the city. He wanted to see you." And Adrian said of course, and cut his roast, and did not look at Lena, but she felt like a hand pressed to her back under the table, the silent word steady. Marcus Thorne arrived at 9:15. He kissed Lena on both cheeks. He called her Mrs. Vance for the first time, and she answered to it for the first time, and she did not flinch. And then 15 minutes later, after a scotch and a round of pleasantries, Marcus Thorne set down his glass and turned to her across the drawing room, in front of her sister, in front of her brother-in-law, in front of Harlan Whitfield and his wife and Adrian, and said, "Lena, there is something I would like to ask you, if I may." "Of course, Mr. Thorne. I understand you and Adrian were married rather quickly." "We were. I understand the circumstances were not conventional." "They were not." "Forgive me for being direct, Mrs. Vance, but I have known Adrian for a long time, and my family's business with his family's business involves trust in ways that are not entirely about paper." "I understand. Then may I ask you, plainly, what do you see in him?" The room went silent. Lena felt Catherine's eyes on her. She felt Adrian's stillness at the other end of the sofa. She felt Harlan Whitfield's wife set down her wineglass with the faintest click of crystal on marble. She felt somewhere under her ribs her own heart slow down. Not speed up, slow down. The way it did on the nights at Mercy when a code went off and she had to walk, not run, to where she was supposed to stand. She thought about what Adrian had told her. "Tell them what you believe." She thought about the tire swing. She thought about his palm on Maya's head in the kitchen at 1:30 in the morning. She thought about, "I did not lie to you about the cost." She looked Marcus Thorne directly in the eye. "Mr. Thorne," she said, "I see a man who tells me the truth even when it is inconvenient for him. That is not a thing I have much experience with. It turns out to be the thing I needed most." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Marcus Thorne very slowly inclined his head. "Thank you, Mrs. Vance. You're welcome. I won't ask you anything else." "All right. Adrian." "Marcus." "Congratulations." "Thank you." And that was it. On the ride home in the back of the SUV, with Calvin's eyes forward and the radio off, Adrian did not speak for 10 minutes. Then, without turning his head, he said, "Lena." What you said in there?" "I know." "Did you mean it?" She looked out the window at the black shapes of the trees along Route 7, and at the thin sliver of moon above them, and at the reflection of her own face, faint and superimposed, in the tinted glass. "Yes," she said. "I meant it." He did not answer. He reached across the seat slowly, and he laid his palm open on the leather between them. She looked at his hand. She looked at her own. She laid her hand on top of his. Not in it, just on it, lightly. The way a woman who had made up her mind about something she had not yet put into words might rest her hand on a thing she had decided to keep. He closed his fingers around hers. They drove the rest of the way in silence, neither of them looking at the other, and when Calvin pulled up to the gray farmhouse and cut the engine, Adrian did not let go of her hand right away. He held it for 3 more breaths, the way a man holds something he is trying very hard not to crush. Then he let go. And they both got out of the car, on opposite sides, and walked into the house under the porch light that had been left on for them, and up the stairs to different bedrooms, hers with a lock, his without. And they closed their doors on different hallways of the same house, and somewhere in the dark between them, in the space under the study and above the kitchen, the thing that had no name yet settled into the floorboards and began, quietly, to wait. The thing that had no name did not stay under the floorboards for long. A week after the dinner in Greenwich, Lena's mother showed up at the gate. It was a Thursday afternoon. Maya was at school. Adrian was in Boston. Lena was at the kitchen counter with her laptop open, halfway through a community college application she was almost ready to submit. She had decided, over 3 bad cups of coffee that morning, that she was going to go back and finish the nursing degree she had abandoned at 23. When the gate intercom beeped, she looked at the small black and white monitor on the wall. Her mother was standing at the gate in a tan trench coat, a leather purse clamped under one arm, a white bakery box in her hands, and an expression Lena had not seen on Diane Brooks' face in 34 years. She looked nervous. Lena pressed the intercom. "Hi, Mom." "Lena, I'm sorry to come unannounced. I know I should have called. Catherine gave me the address." "It's okay. Come on up." She pressed the button. The gate opened. She watched her mother's car, the old silver Lexus, the one Diane had been driving since Lena was in high school, ease up the long drive toward the house, and in the 3 minutes it took for Diane to make it to the porch, Lena did 3 things. She closed the laptop. She put on a sweater she didn't need. She looked at herself in the entryway mirror and did not recognize the woman looking back. Then she opened the front door. Diane stood at the top of the porch steps. She didn't come in. She stood there holding the bakery box like a woman who had practiced what she was going to say and forgotten it somewhere between the gate and the porch. "Hi." "Hi, Mom. I brought a coffee cake." "From Belanti's?" "Where else?" "Come in." They went into the kitchen. Diane sat at the island because Lena pointed her to the island. Lena put the kettle on because it was what her mother always did when she didn't know what else to do. And that was a thing Lena had learned from her, whether she liked it or not. Diane set the coffee cake on the counter and looked around the kitchen, and Lena watched her mother's eyes move across the copper pans hanging from the rack, and the enormous gas range, and the framed photo of Maya on the fridge. And she watched her mother's eyes do the same recalculation they had done in the ballroom 4 weeks ago, and she waited. "Mom." "Lena, why are you here? I wanted to see the house." "No, you didn't." "Lena, you could have seen the house in pictures. You didn't come here to see the house." Her mother put her hands on the counter, flat, palms down. "I came here to apologize." Lena did not move. She had not expected that. She had expected her mother to ask questions. She had expected interrogation about Adrian, about his family, about the ring, about the house, about the dinner in Greenwich that Catherine had, of course, reported back in detail. She had expected her mother to use the word embarrassed, and the word worried, and possibly the word reckless. She had not expected "I came here to apologize." "For what?" she said carefully. "You know for what." "Mom, say it." Diane looked down at her hands. "I said something at your sister's wedding that I should not have said. I said she was my only girl. I meant it the way a mother of the bride means it in the moment. I did not mean it the other way, but I heard it come out of my mouth, and I saw your face at table 22, and I knew, Lena. I knew what I had done. And I spent 3 weeks pretending I didn't. Okay? And I'm sorry. Okay? I was a bad mother to you, and I was a good mother to Catherine, and I did not know I was doing it. I thought I was being fair. I wasn't. I had a favorite. I had her from the day she was born. I don't know why. I wish I knew why. I've been thinking about it for 3 weeks, and I still don't know, but I know I did it, and I am sorry. The kettle whistled. Lena did not move to get it. It whistled for a long time. Eventually, she crossed to the stove and turned it off. She did not look at her mother. Mom, why now? Because I don't want to lose you. You already lost me, Mom. You lost me 11 years ago. I know. You lost me when you told me Derek was a good catch, and I should hang on to him. You lost me when Maya was 6, and I was crying on your kitchen floor about him, and you told me to stop being dramatic. You lost me when I moved out of his house with a baby and 2 suitcases, and you told me I was making a scene. You lost me at Christmas 2 years ago when I drove over to bring Maya her presents, and you were not home because you and Catherine had gone skiing and forgotten to tell me. You lost me in small pieces over a very long time, Mom. And you did not notice. I know. Don't say I know. Say something else. Diane was crying now, quietly, not performing. The tears were just running down her face, and she was not wiping them away because she was not wearing the kind of makeup that mine did. I didn't notice, Diane said. You're right. I didn't notice because I didn't want to notice. Because if I had noticed, I would have had to change something. And it was easier not to. That's the worst part, Lena. It wasn't cruelty. It was laziness. I was a lazy mother to you and a vigilant mother to her, and I knew underneath that it was wrong. And I did it anyway because changing it felt too hard. Mom, but let me finish, please. Let me finish. Okay. I did not come here because you married a rich man. I did not come here because Adrian Vance is who he is. I want to be clear about that because I know how it looks. It looks like I'm here because you finally became visible enough to be worth apologizing to. And maybe that's part of it, Lena. I can't tell you it isn't. I spent my whole life measuring my daughters in a currency I didn't pick. And now the currency has moved, and I am not going to stand here and tell you that doesn't have anything to do with why I'm in your kitchen today. It does. But it isn't the whole reason. What's the whole reason? The whole reason is that I watched you in that ballroom walk in on that man's arm, and for the first time in 8 years, I saw you look at me like I was not going to save you. And I realized I had never saved you. I had spent 34 years waiting to be asked, and you had stopped asking when you were 16, and I had let you. And that is on me. That is not on you. That is not on Catherine. That is on me. Lena did not sit down. She did not move. She stood at the stove with the kettle in her hand, and she did not trust her legs. Mom, yes, I don't know what to do with this. You don't have to do anything with it. I don't know if I forgive you. You don't have to. I might not forgive you, ever. That's your right. Mom, don't give me permission to not forgive you like that's a gift. I don't need your permission. I already didn't forgive you. That's what the last 8 years were. I know. Then what do you want? Diane wiped her face with the back of her hand, a little girl's gesture, and Lena hated that it made something inside her move. I want to know Maya, Diane said. I have been a mediocre grandmother. I have been a worse grandmother than I was a mother. And Maya is 8, and I have about 10 good years before she stops wanting anything from a grandmother, and I would like to use them. I would like to call her on the phone and ask her about her spelling tests. I would like to send her books. I would like to bake things with her when she will let me. I would like to come to her school plays. I would like her to know I exist, Lena, in a way she does not currently know I exist. That is what I want. I want to be the grandmother you deserved your grandmother to be to you. I want to do for her the thing I did not do for you. None. Mom, I'm not asking you to be my daughter again in one afternoon, Lena. I know that's not on offer. I'm asking you to let me try. With her. And through her, maybe, someday, with you. Lena put the kettle down. She did not cry. She was too tired to cry. Her eyes hurt. Okay, she said. Okay? Okay. She gets home from school at 3:20. If you want to wait, You can meet her, properly, not as the grandmother who forgets her birthday. Her mother nodded, she nodded several times in a row, the way women do when they cannot trust their own voices.
Mom. Yes. One rule. Anything. Don't tell her she looks like Catherine. Her mother's face crumpled. I won't, she whispered. I won't, she doesn't. She looks like you. Thank you.
They drank tea. They did not talk much. At 3:20, Calvin brought Maya home from school, and Maya walked into the kitchen with her backpack still on her shoulder and stopped when she saw her grandmother at the island. Hi, Grandma. Hi, sweetheart. Are you staying for dinner? Diane looked at Lena. Lena nodded once. Yes, Diane said, if that's all right with you. Sure, Maya said, with the majestic indifference of an 8-year-old for whom a grandmother showing up on a Thursday was no weirder than anything else happening in her life lately. Mom, can I have the snack? Yes, baby, in the pantry. Maya disappeared into the pantry. Diane looked at Lena across the island, and her eyes were bright and red, and Lena felt something 20-year-old and 30-year-old and 8-year-old in her chest, all move at once, and she did not forgive her mother. But she made her mother dinner, and that, Lena thought, was what forgiveness had to start as. A meal. A door opened. A thing you do not have to do, and do anyway. Mass. Catherine came the next Sunday. She came without the coffee cake. She came without the speech. She came alone, in a dark coat, and she stood on the porch with her hands in her pockets, and she said, before Lana had fully opened the door, I think I have been a bad sister to you. Catherine, not about the wedding, I mean before that, for a long time. Come inside. In a minute, let me say it first. Okay. They stood in the cold on the porch. Catherine's breath made a little cloud every time she exhaled. I knew Mom treated us differently. I knew it when I was 9. I pretended I didn't. I let her because it was easier for me. And I let you take the part of being the responsible one, and the part of being the one she was hard on, and I let you take all of it. And I did not once say, hey, Mom, stop. Because if I said, hey, Mom, stop, she might have started being hard on me, and I was not brave enough to risk it, and I am sorry. Catherine, I'm not done. Okay? Adrian? What about him? Is he a good man? Lena thought about it. He's trying to be. Do you love him? I don't know yet. Does he love you? I don't know yet. Lena. Yes. I was so angry at you at my wedding. I was so angry. I am ashamed of how angry I was because you didn't do anything to me. You just walked into the room on somebody's arm, and I looked at you and I thought she's stealing it. I thought she's finally stealing it. And it was, I don't even know what it was. I had it already. And I thought you were stealing it, and I hated you for a minute, and I am ashamed. Catherine. Yes. I didn't steal anything. I know. Come inside. You're cold. They went inside. They sat in the living room, and they drank coffee, and they did not talk about their mother. They talked about Maya, and about Brandon, who Catherine said was kind, and about a trip to Portugal Catherine wanted to take in the spring, and at one point Catherine reached across the couch and took Lena's hand, the one with the ring on it, and held it very carefully and said, It's a beautiful ring. It's not really what's important. I know. I picked a small one. I figured I could have picked a bigger one. I know. I wanted you to know that. Lena, I already knew that. They sat there for a long time holding hands. Derek was harder. Derek called Lena 3 weeks into December. She did not pick up. He called again. He texted. He sent an email. He showed up, finally, on a Saturday morning at the gate, and the intercom beeped, and Lena looked at the monitor and saw his Audi and his face, and she felt her stomach lurch. She pressed the intercom. Derek. Lena, let me in. No. Lena, we need to talk. About what? About Maya. Then you can come to the gate, and I'll meet you at the gate. You're not coming to the house. Are you kidding? No. She took her coat and walked down the drive. The gravel crunched under her boots. Maya was inside with Mrs. Delacroix, who had been coming up once a weekend because she said Ridgefield made her car feel important. Adrian was in New York. Lena reached the gate. Derek was standing on the other side of it, his hands in his pockets, his expression somewhere between annoyed and something uglier. Open the gate. No. Lena, this is ridiculous. What do you want, Derek? I want to talk to you about custody. We have a custody arrangement. You haven't used your weekends in 3 months. That was before all this. Before all what? Before you went and married some... Careful. Lena, I don't know this guy. No, you don't. He's around my daughter. He's around our daughter, and he's been nothing but respectful of her, and she likes him, and he doesn't cross lines with her. She calls him Adrian. He doesn't tuck her in. He doesn't pretend to be her dad. You're her dad. You should have told me. Told you what? That you were getting married. Derek, you told me you were getting married 3 weeks before the wedding, and I found out from your mother. That's not the same. It's exactly the same. Lena, Derek, what do you actually want? Because it isn't custody. You don't want more time with Maya. You never have. You want something else. Say what it is. He looked at her for a long time through the bars of the gate. I want to know if you're happy. She was not ready for that. It was the first honest thing he had said to her in 6 years. Don't, she said. Don't ask me that. Lena, don't ask me that, Derek. You do not get to ask me that. You do not get to stand on the other side of a gate you are not invited past and ask me if I am happy. That is not a question you have the standing to ask. I was your husband. You were. I'm Maya's father. Then be Maya's father. Call her on Sundays. Take her to lunch when you're in town. Remember her teacher's name. Remember her favorite color. Remember what grade she's in. Those are the things a father does. Being her father is not a privilege that includes standing at my gate asking me whether I'm happy. I'm trying, Upgine. I know you're trying. I know you're trying now, Derek. Where was the trying 6 years ago? I was young. I was young too. I made mistakes. Yes. I'm sorry. She looked at him. Okay, she said. Okay? Okay means I heard you. Okay does not mean we are going to be friends. Okay does not mean we are going to have coffee. Okay means I heard you and I accept that you are sorry, and I am going to go back inside my house now, and you are going to get back in your car and go back to your wife and your son, and you are going to be a better father to Maya than you have been, and that will be how we do this from now on. Are we clear? Lena, are we clear, Derek? For a second she thought he might hit the gate. Men like Derek, when cornered, sometimes did small physical things to relieve the pressure. But he didn't. He just looked at her for another long moment, and something in his shoulders gave way, and he nodded. Yeah, he said. We're clear. Good. Tell Maya I'll call her tomorrow. I will. She turned. She walked back up the drive. She heard his car door close behind her, and the engine start, and the tires crunch on the gravel, and she did not look back. In the house, Mrs. Delacroix was at the kitchen counter with Beatrice in her lap and a cup of tea in her hand. She took one look at Lena and said, Was that the ex? Yes. Is he alive? Yes. Shame. Lena laughed. It came out shaky. She sat down on the floor next to Mrs. Delacroix's chair, and she put her face in her hands for a second because she had been holding everything up for a long time, and for once there was nobody watching who required her to keep holding. Mrs. D? Yes, honey. I think I might love him. The ex? Mrs. D. I'm teasing you, honey. I know who you mean. What do I do? About what? About loving him. Honey, you love him. That is not a thing that requires doing. What? The 6 months passed faster than she thought possible. December came and went. Christmas at the Ridgefield house. Maya's first real Christmas tree, a 10-footer Adrian had dragged in from somewhere, heavy with ornaments the stylist had bought, and Maya had rearranged according to a system only Maya understood. Adrian was there for 3 days. He gave Maya a book about horses and a pair of small gold earrings in a blue box he had asked Lena about first. He gave Lena nothing. That had been their arrangement. No presents? Not yet. Not for her. He sat on the floor in the living room on Christmas morning in a sweater and socks, and Maya read him the book aloud, badly, skipping the hard words and making up new ones. And Lena watched him listen to her daughter with a patience that was not performance, and something in her chest that had been crouched for a long time stood up. January was quieter. Maya started second semester math. Lena got into the nursing program at the community college, starting in the fall. Adrian took her out to a restaurant in Greenwich to celebrate, and on the way home in the SUV she said quietly, looking out the window, "Adrian, I'm going to pay you back for the tuition." "No, you're not." "Adrian."
Lena, I bought the tuition. It's done. It is not a loan. It is a paid thing. Please don't try to make it a loan. It demeans both of us. It doesn't demean me. It demeans me. She looked at him. Okay. Thank you. But I'm going to pay you back in some way. Maybe not with money, but some way. I know you are.
February brought a second dinner in Greenwich, at which Marcus Thorne shook Adrian's hand for a full 2 seconds too long and said, "I believe we are past the verification stage." And Adrian nodded, and in the car on the way home, Lena realized that whatever danger she had been standing near, the man named Victor, whose name Adrian had stopped saying, the ship corridor she still did not understand, had passed over the house without landing on it. She did not ask. He did not tell her. Some things, she had learned, you did not have to know. March brought the first real fight. It was about something small and stupid. It was about whether Maya could sleep over at a friend's house in Westfield whose parents Adrian had not met, and Adrian had said he would prefer to meet them first. And Lena had said he did not have preferences about Maya, and he had said he did actually have one preference. And she had said, don't do this, and he had said, do what? And she had said, don't start acting like you're her father. And the kitchen had gone very quiet for a long second. And then Adrian very carefully had said, I'm not trying to act like her father, Lena. I'm trying to act like a man who lives in a house with an 8-year-old and who would like to know the people she stays the night with. Those are two different things. Adrian, I will defer to you on everything about her. You know that. But I am allowed to care about the answer. I am allowed to have preferences. You are allowed to overrule me, but you are not allowed to pretend I don't care. She had stood at the sink for a long time. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. I'm sorry. Lena. Yes. She's going to sleep over wherever you say she can sleep over. I don't care. I really don't care. I am not interested in controlling a single thing about her life. I was asking for information. That's all. I know. Then why did you say what you said? Because I was scared. Of what? Of needing you to care. He did not answer. He did not come across the kitchen to hold her. He stood where he was, with his hands flat on the counter, and he said, Lena, it's March. I know. The 6 months are up in 3 weeks. I know. I don't say it yet. Why not? Because if you say it now, I'll think you're saying it because the deal's almost up. And I don't want that. I want you to say it when you say it because you mean it. I always mean what I say. I know. Lena. Adrian, 3 weeks. We have 3 weeks. Let's just finish the 6 months. Let's finish them properly. Let's do the last events. Let's file the last paperwork. And then on the day the paperwork is done, if you still want to say something to me, I will listen. And if I still want to say something to you, I will say it, but not before. Please. He nodded slowly. All right. Thank you. Lena. Yes. Can I hug you? She looked at him. She nodded. He came around the counter and put his arms around her carefully, the way a man handles a thing he has decided is more fragile than it looks. She put her forehead against his collarbone. She closed her eyes. She did not cry, because she had decided a long time ago that she was not going to cry in front of him until she was ready, but she breathed against the fabric of his shirt for a long time, and she did not move. And he did not move either, and there was nothing performed about it. After a while, he said very quietly, Okay? 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Mom. 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday in late March, Priya Rao called Lena at 10 in the morning. It's done. Done? Your divorce is final. I filed everything on Friday. The judge signed this morning. You are officially unmarried. Lena sat down on the stairs. Thank you, Priya. Are you all right? I don't know. Take your time, honey. Call me if you need me. Priya. Thank you for not asking. Asking what? Anything. Priya laughed once. That's what I'm paid for, Lena. Not asking. She hung up. Lena sat on the stairs for a long time. Adrian was in New York. He would be back that night.
Maya was at school. The house was quiet. The dogwood in the front yard was starting to bud. There had been a light dusting of snow the night before, and it was already melting off the porch railing in little dark streaks. She did not know what she was going to say to him. She did not know what he was going to say to her. She knew only that she had spent 6 months in a house with a man who had given her, carefully, the one thing no one in her life had ever given her, the permission to decide out loud what she wanted. And she knew what she wanted. She had known since the night in the SU-5 on Route 7, when he had laid his palm open on the leather between them, and she had put her hand on top of it. She had known since the morning he had put his palm on Maya's feverish head and walked across the kitchen to make her toast. She had known since the tire swing. She had known before she had a word for it. She was going to say yes, if he asked. And if he didn't, if she had been wrong about what she had seen in his face on the porch in October and on the dance floor in September and on the ride home from Greenwich in December, then she was going to say it first. She was done waiting for her life to begin on somebody else's schedule. He came home at 8. He walked into the house the way he always walked in. He took off his overcoat. He set his briefcase in the study. He said hello to Maya, who was sitting at the kitchen island doing homework. He poured himself a glass of water. He looked at Lena across the kitchen. He knew. She could see it in his face. He knew the papers had gone through. Priya had probably called his lawyer the same way she had called Lena. He did not say it in front of Maya. He made dinner with her. They had chicken and rice and green beans because Maya liked green beans, which Lena still considered one of the great mysteries of her life. Maya talked about a boy in her class who had eaten paste. Adrian listened. Adrian asked what color the paste was. Maya said white. Adrian said that was a bad choice because if it had been red, she would have known he was lying. Maya laughed. After dinner, Maya went upstairs to read. Lena rinsed the plates. Adrian dried. Neither of them said anything for a long time. When the last plate was in the rack, Adrian folded the towel. He set it on the counter. Lena. Yes. Can we sit? Yes. They went out onto the porch. It was cold. She pulled a blanket off the swing and wrapped it around her shoulders. He did not take one. He did not need one. He sat next to her on the swing, not touching her, and he put his hands on his knees. Priya called me at 10 this morning, she said. Mine called me at 11. Yeah. They sat there for a while. The tire swing was still up, hanging from the oak. The moon was thin. Lena. You told me in the kitchen 3 weeks ago that if I wanted to say something to you, I should wait until the paperwork was done. Yes. The paperwork is done. Yes. I want to say something to you. Okay. He turned slightly toward her on the swing. I have not been in love with anyone since I was 24 years old. I am 39 years old. I did not think I was going to be in love with anyone again. I did not want to be. I had built a life in which it was not going to be asked of me. Then in October, I walked into a hotel lounge to cancel a deal, and I sat down at a bar and I watched a woman put her head in her hands and not cry. And I did not know then what was happening. I thought what was happening was that I had found a solution to a problem. That is what I told myself for several weeks. I told it to myself through the wedding. I told it to myself through the dinner in Greenwich. I told it to myself in the SUV on the ride home that night when you put your hand on mine on the leather seat, and I held it, and I told myself I was holding it because it was what a grateful man does when a stranger has done him a kindness. Adrian, let me finish. Okay. I am not a grateful man. I have not been grateful for anything in years. I do not know how to be grateful. I know how to be protective, and I know how to be careful, and I know how to keep people at a distance that allows me to function. I do not know how to be grateful. What I felt on that ride home was not gratitude. I spent the next 3 months trying to convince myself it was. It was not. I knew it was not when I stood on this porch in October and watched you and your daughter in the yard under the maple tree, and you came up the steps and told me not to look at you like you were something I could have had if I'd been paying attention. That was the night I knew. That was the night I knew I had not been paying attention, Lena, and that I was going to start. I started that night. I have been paying attention since that night. And what I have been paying attention to has changed everything in me that used to work, and I do not want it to change back. Do you understand what I am saying to you? She could not speak.
I am saying to you, he said, that I did not marry you in October to make you my wife. I married you to solve a problem, and in March I am telling you that I am in love with you. And those are two different things, Lena, and I want you to know that I know they are two different things, and I am not asking you for anything. I am telling you." She was crying. She did not notice until the wind hit her face and she felt the cold tracks. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, the way her mother had wiped her face in the kitchen that afternoon in December. "Adrian?" "Yes." "I need to say something too." "Of course. I spent my whole life being told I was the second daughter. I spent my whole marriage being told I was a disappointing wife. I spent my whole career being told I was lucky to have a job at all. And every one of those things, every one of them, taught me that I was supposed to want less than I did, that I was supposed to ask for less than I wanted, that the thing I wanted would go to somebody prettier or easier or louder. And I got so good at wanting less that by the time I walked into that ballroom in October, I didn't know what I wanted anymore. I couldn't tell you. You could have handed me a menu and I would not have been able to order. That was what you saw. That was the woman you saw in the lounge. I know. And you did a strange thing. You didn't tell me what I wanted. You didn't fix it for me. You just asked, over and over, for 6 months. You asked me what room I wanted to sleep in. You asked me what school I wanted for Maya. You asked me if I wanted to go to dinner. You asked me what I thought of the house. You asked me if you could hug me. You asked. And every time you asked, a piece of me that had forgotten it was allowed to want things remembered. It was allowed to want things. And somewhere around December, I started wanting things again. And somewhere around January, I started wanting you. And somewhere around February, I realized I had been wanting you for a very long time and just not letting myself use the word. And tonight, Adrian, tonight I am using the word. I want you. I love you. I want to stay married to you, not for 6 months, not for the deal, for the real thing, for the actual thing. I want to stay. He did not move for a long second. Then he put his hands on her face, both of them, carefully. The way a man puts his hands on something he has been given permission to touch for the first time. "Lena, Adrian, can I kiss you?" "Yes." He kissed her. It was not the kind of kiss that happened in movies. It was not choreographed. Their noses bumped. She laughed, wet and surprised, into his mouth, and he laughed too, a small, rare sound she had only heard once or twice in 6 months. And they tried again, more slowly, and it was better. They sat on the porch swing in the cold for a long time. Inside the house, through a kitchen window, they could hear Maya very faintly, upstairs, arguing with herself about a math problem. They did not get married again right away. He asked her a month later on a Saturday morning in the kitchen with no ring and no speech. He just said, "Lena, will you marry me again, properly?" And she said yes, and he nodded and went back to pouring his coffee. And she said, "Is that it?" And he said, "What more did you want?" And she said a little more, and he laughed and came around the island and kissed her on the top of her head. They did it in June in the backyard of the farmhouse. 40 people. Mrs. Delacroix in the front row with Beatrice in her lap. Catherine as the matron of honor. Brandon officiating because he had, unexpectedly, gotten ordained online the year before. Lena's mother cried through the whole thing quietly and did not try to make it about her. Maya walked Lena down a path of rose petals she had thrown herself, in a pale yellow dress she had picked out at the mall in Danbury, looking older than 8 and younger than 8, in the way only children on the days that mattered ever did. Derek was not there. He had sent a card. It had been a good card. Lena had read it twice and put it in a drawer. Calvin stood at the back in a suit, smiling, with his son, who was 14 and tall and shy. Adrian, at the end of the aisle, wore the same gray suit he had worn at the courthouse in November. Not a new one, on purpose. "You didn't buy a new one," she said when she reached him. "You didn't ask me to." "Adrian?" "Yes." "I love you." "I love you too." They got married again in front of everybody who mattered, and Brandon pronounced them husband and wife. And this time when Adrian looked at her and paused, she did not say cheek. In the years that followed, Lena would think a lot about what she had learned. She would think about it at her nursing school graduation, which she walked across the stage for at 36, with Maya and Adrian and her mother and her sister and Mrs. Delacroix all in the same row, clapping. She would think about it at Maya's middle school graduation and then at her high school graduation, and then in a memory that felt very far from the ballroom and very close to it at the same time. At Maya's own wedding, years later, to a kind woman named Esme, who wrote software and made Maya laugh in a way Lena recognized. She would think about the word invisible. She would think about how easy it is, as a woman, to learn that word early and wear it like a coat. About how the world teaches you to wear it, and how the people who love you the least will let you wear it, and how the people who love you the most will not tell you you're wearing it because they're afraid you'll take it off and change. She would think about how the most dangerous thing she had ever done was not marry a stranger.